Hello and welcome to the Giants of Backlog. The Giants of Backlog is a podcast where four friends have gotten together to conquer their ever-growing backlogs. This week, we'll be talking about Resident Evil 4. I'm your host, Paul, joined by
Jay,
John,
Alec.
Yeah, so we spent the last 2 weeks playing Resident Evil 4, and we're going to get into a deep dive, spoilery discussion about that game. But it's been a couple weeks since we last caught up, so before we get into Resident Evil 4, I just wanted to catch up with the other Giants and see what else you guys have been playing. So John, I think you were telling me earlier this week that recently you've been playing through Persona 4 Golden for the first time, right?
Yeah. Yep. Picked up Persona 4. Last sales right now. So I was trying to look for a game that I could start playing. Because honestly, I just want to play a good game. And it's been a little bit. So, in my opinion. So, I was looking at what was on sale. And I know I've heard you guys talk about Persona shit ton of times now. At least once. I mean, Jay brought to my attention that like it's in each of yours, like all three of you guys, it's in each of your top 5 of all time. Persona 4. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. I know like I tried to play Yakuza 0 and couldn't get through that game. But that was mostly a controls thing. I didn't like the 16 directional like clunkiness of it. But Persona, I've been addicted to. I've been playing it for, at this point, maybe it's been like 5 days, 6 days.
Wow.
And I have like 25 hours in it.
Good for you, man.
I've been spending a lot of time in that game and been really enjoying it. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's just good. It's just cozy.
Yeah.
It's easy to play. You can just kick back and just play all day and then look over and it's, 6 hours later and you're like, holy shit, I just spent all this time playing Persona, and then I'm just sitting here like, all right, I don't regret it. I enjoyed it. But yeah,
And
the reason I wanted to play
watched you play it.
Oh, yeah.
I watched you play it, and like one of your pet peeves across the board is always like reading, and so it's nice that Persona actually has an English voice cast that like says the whole line and everything.
Yeah,
I feel like that
and
definitely helps keep you invested, but also help with the reading at all, or
sorry, what?
does that also help with the reading at all? That they have the voice accompanying it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you don't have to read.
Don't you still have to read?
If it's voice acted,
I'm saying, do you find yourself reading more?
Yeah, like
Sorry, do you find yourself reading more?
To the NPCs, that's not voice acted, is it?
Oh, right. And I think I've seen like JRPGs do this before, where in the first like 5 hours everything's voice acted, and then afterward it's just the main storyline that's voice acted.
Yeah,
which I think is lazy, but I mean, I guess they gotta save money, but whatever.
Yeah.
So when that transition happened, that was kind of like a rough spike for me. But even still,
the game was fun enough. The game was fun enough to keep you
and it's nice
invested.
big text. Not that like I have terrible eyes or anything, but like it's not like this stupid little word bubble over people's heads. For the most part, it's like big ass text at the bottom. Yeah, I like that better. Just personal preference. So I've been having a good time with it. I've been enjoying it.
it's a big win, I think, for the Giants that you're finally playing it. With how much we all gush about it, it'll be cool to talk to you about it when you finish it.
Yeah, and at this rate, I'm gonna finish it like within the month.
And then I vote. We have a bonus episode for 5 Royal because I'm still meaning to play that, so I will play that with you, John.
Well, here's the thing. if I beat Persona 4, I'm not guaranteeing you I'm going to play 5
I
Royal
know.
right after. It might be
No.
Like, come on now.
Eventually. Yeah, I haven't gotten into... I beat 5. I haven't played Royal, so I need to play it.
Are they different?
They added a whole dungeon and character and...
a whole nother semester at the end.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so John, one thing about Persona games is the first 20 hours is basically the tutorial. So you're just past the tutorial part of the game, and now you have like 75 hours of real shit.
Yeah, that's
How
cool
far
too.
did you get?
Like, I like when it gets... I'm only like a month and a half in, which is like crazy, right? But like, I just saved Kanji.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Kanji's probably my favorite character from that game.
He is a great character.
He's great.
He's voiced by Troy Baker.
I didn't know that. So I knew Laura Bailey was
Troy Baker?
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker was Kanji.
Mm-hmm.
Rize's voiced by
Laura Bailey.
Laura Bailey, same voice as Kate from.
And then
Gears
isn't
5.
God, what's his name? The guy who runs Critical Role. Doesn't he voice somebody too? Yeah, Matt
Mercer. I think so.
He voices one of the. I don't know. I could be wrong.
But
you said no.
I digress. I don't know. I didn't look it up. He might be one of the side characters or something. He's in a lot of stuff too. Like, they're all they do the same stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, John. I'm glad you're finally playing that game. I like that. For those of you listening to the podcast, John's just drinking wine from the bottle this week.
Why would you get a glass? Then you have to do that glass.
Just creating dishes.
Well, the mini fridge is right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
All the glasses are downstairs.
You could chill a glass in the mini fridge.
Yeah, but then
at all times
it gets warm, so I could rotate.
Yeah.
So, I've been playing some games. I played through the first world in Ollie Ollie because I picked it up on sale. And that game's about what you think it would be. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it or not. I'm not having, like, blast of the time. I feel like as I get older, I care less and less about cosmetics, and that's what you get for beating every level is, like, a different cosmetic for your skater, so...
Mm-hmm. That game was, like, an 86 on Fantasy Critic last year.
Yeah.
That's a really good game.
This year?
Well, they took a page out of the...
No.
Yeah, it was this year.
Really?
They took a page out of the Cuphead book where they made it hard. So most of the critics probably couldn't get past the first couple levels.
Interesting.
And then I've been playing Vampire Survivors. I got addicted to that game.
I've been playing that too.
It was.
It's so addictive. And I've been playing the new God of War Ragnarok. So I'm like 12 hours into that. Just picked it up on Friday. Today's Sunday, so I've been playing a lot of that. And it's cool. I wouldn't call it a game that deserves the 94, but I'm only 12 hours in, so we'll see how my perception changes as it continues.
Yeah, I've been playing it too. I'm like 40 hours in. I've been doing a lot of side quests and a lot of collectibles. But I think I'm close to finishing it. I hope so, at least. I felt the same way at about the 12-hour mark. I was like, this is a good game, but I don't know if it's a 10 out of 10 game. And I still don't know if it's a 10 out of 10 game, but I certainly warmed on it from 12 hours to where I'm at now.
That's a spoiler.
That it gets better.
Spoiler alert, God of War gets better between 12 and 40 hours.
Okay. That's a pretty big one.
And also, main character number 3 dies.
Ooh.
You're not supposed to say that, John. That's just a dick move, but you're right.
I don't know the characters in that game.
I don't know the ranking of the main characters either.
Well, everybody is supposed to die at Ragnarok.
That's true.
So I don't know because I haven't finished the game, but my expectation is that
the only one
die.
The only one to have finished the game so far would have been me at this point. So I'm not going to spoil anything. But I've been playing God of War Ragnarok as well, and I got the platinum like 4 days after it came out.
Which means nothing because Alec platinums everything. Doesn't matter if it's good.
That's not true. No. That's not true.
For the platinum.
Not true. There it is. It was fun. No, I don't platinum everything. I platinum a lot of things, but not everything. I still don't have that coveted Hannah Montana, the movie, the game, that I wish I had, but no.
Why not?
Because I don't feel like sitting through the 3 or 4 hours it would take to platinum it.
Fair. Very fair.
So
it's a good choice.
I know, so I don't platinum everything. That would have been the easiest platinum, and I chose not to get it. So that shows some control. But no, I love God of War. It was awesome.
Spoiler alert, God of War is awesome.
Also, spoiler alert, I think it was definitely held back by being on both PS4 and PS5 because they did the same tricks with the cinematics of loading and everything when they really didn't need to, because when you get to post game and they're through all the dialogue and they're through all the bullshit, when you want to fast travel on PS5, you fast travel. You go through the door, it pops up, and you're in the next world. Like, they didn't need to fill so much time with loading in PS5, and they did because they made it for both. So I think that,
whoa, really?
I'm excited to see the next game that's going to push PS5
I
for
didn't
anything.
think it looked a lot better than the last God of War.
Yep.
Yeah, I was expecting it to look a lot nicer, and it didn't. I was a little
like my thoughts are, wow, this is the greatest PS4 game ever made.
Yeah.
So,
I want a PS5 game, and I mean, they still haven't delivered one just because of that gap. I mean, and I get it because of the whole supply chain and everything, but I want to see a PS5 game.
Wait,
I've been waiting 2 years to see a PS5 game.
That 2023 should be like the cutoff, right? There's like 30 million PS5s in the wild now.
Right. Make a PS5 game.
It's coming.
You're saying that PS5 can handle like not having these large loading screens, but because it was made for PS4 and PS5, they put them in anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
John,
that was the whole gimmick of the last God of War game, is they hid all the loading screens with you shimmying through a crack or ducking under a
dialogue
to get to the next area for like a long walk. That's where they loaded in the next area. So it was all like, it was a game that was done all in one shot.
Yeah, no load screens. No load screens.
Yeah. And Alex saying you didn't need to do that because with the new generation, the Xbox Series X and PS5, those load times are pretty close to gone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and what I was saying is like they hit them for these like fast travel worlds, right? And they hit them by using dialogue and walking corridors. And then when you get past that and you're like, they're done filling with all this filler content, and it's just like, okay, you're trying to fast travel to the next world. In PS4, it might take you still the same amount of time, the 20, 30 seconds of just like running around this empty thing with nothing happening. But in PS5, it's like you go in, 4 seconds later, you're ready to go to the next area.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh.
So and again, I'm waiting for it. I'm hoping that it happens.
Spider-Man, right?
Spider-Man did it, right?
2, I mean.
But that was, the next Spider-Man. Yeah, I think that'll be just PS5. So I'm excited for that. And that's the same situation where they used fast travel
subway,
load screens. Yeah, on the PS4, it took 20, 30 seconds between every time you wanted to move. And then PS5, it's like, boom, you're uptown, downtown, doesn't matter.
With that
You're
game,
there.
it was an achievement to like fast travel on the subway, and I think Jay, you had the same experience. You never fast traveled in that game because it was so fun to sling around.
Yeah.
When I went to go get the platinum, I finally used the fast travel system and realized, like, oh, that's what the subway is for.
Yep.
Wait, so I guess the other thing I just want to point out about what you said, because I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe more people maybe most people know, but I don't. You said that God of War is a PS4/PS5 game and you're waiting for the first PS5 game to come out.
Yes.
So I know there was like a shortage of PS5s when they first came out. Like getting a PS5 to this day is still like it's still difficult. So because of that, there's no like the games that come out right now are still like PS4/PS5, not just totally PS5.
Wow. There are some exceptions.
So they have to develop to the lowest common denominator. So they have to develop for PS4s and then just upscale for PS5s.
Yep.
Wow. That's crazy.
I know, it's a limitation. And that's the situation we're in.
Why come out with the new console?
There's some crossover.
And why get the new console?
But it's not usually 2 years. But, I mean, there are like 110 million PS4 sold, right?
Yeah. But anyway, the other thing I was playing, in addition to this masterpiece we're going to get into, I wanted to try another masterpiece that everyone claims is a masterpiece. And so I started Skyrim, and I only played like 1.5 hours of that. But I just literally played it how I wanted to play it. And so I got through the tutorial, and then the guy's walking down the road, and I immediately turned and try and climb the tallest mountain just to see if I could. And I was having fun. I was climbing up and jimmying my way, and then I got to a area that was too high a level and got my ass kicked. And I'm like, okay, I can see the appeal of this game, and like the fun that I'll have exploring this world. So I'll be giving that a shot in the future. But that's about all that I can say at this moment.
We've probably talked about this before, but you've never played Skyrim?
No,
we talked about it a couple.
We talked about it.
But why? Because it was was it Xbox exclusive or something?
No, it was just that it was such a big game, and I didn't want to jump into that kind of commitment.
Huh?
Afraid of commitment.
Afraid of commitment. It's a real problem. But then with traveling right now, I went to my brother-in-law's, and he's a Nintendo fanboy, so I tried some of the new Pokemon, wanted to see what all the buzz was about with the glitchiness. And it's glitchy, it's buggy, but there was only one time the game crashed, and then the rest of the stuff where they're complaining about like sprites, most of it is due to the camera. Oh, and we'll talk about camera in this episode, but but most of it's due to the camera, like just being in a weird configuration where the sprite isn't seen by it. So you move the camera and you're able to see the sprite again. So like, I guess that might have been where a lot of it's coming from. But overall, I found it still fun. But yeah, it's definitely a kid's game too, because it wasn't challenging like at all. I beat the game in like, he was already 10 hours in or something like that, and I beat the game by the time
you finished it?
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
How was the Elite Four in this one?
Not hard at all. Like I said, it's just like, and I was under level for it and everything, and I cleared it with 2 starters, and you don't even have to really train. But I can see like a lot of the exploration is fun, and so that helps you like level up on its own. And my brother-in-law is like a completionist for that, so he wanted to catch all the Pokemon and complete the Pokedex, so I was helping do that, and that helps you level up your team. But I don't know, pretty fun. I had more fun playing with him than I did on my own. But go ahead, John.
Talking about Pokemon, a game I've been looking at in Winter Sale that I've been wondering about is like Temtem. And Temtem is like what everyone who grew up with Pokemon has always wanted Pokemon to do, in my opinion. It's like it's basically, it's not Pokemon, but it's basically a monster collector battler like Pokemon, but an MMO, right? Where like, would you guys play that? Because I've been thinking about picking it up, and I think it'd be fun to play.
Where's it on sale?
People.
I've seen a lot of comments on like YouTube videos and stuff that say Temtem is better than Pokemon. But initially when it came out, I think it was pretty critically poorly received. But maybe over the years they've patched it, I wouldn't mind checking it out.
It has positive Steam reviews.
We want to play that.
Where's it on sale?
On Steam.
Oh.
Yeah, because I've been looking at that because that's what I've always wanted. Like, I got bored of the Pokemon formula when I was a kid, and now it's 15 years later, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to buy another Pokemon game. I've always wanted a Pokemon game where it is multiplayer, you know? You're online, you build a team, you fight other people. And, like, what was the one? It was like Pokemon Battle or Pokemon... What was that? I don't remember.
Pokemon...
But that game...
Oh, yeah. Pokemon MMO? The Pokemon MMO?
No, it wasn't an MMO.
Pokemon Arena.
Pokemon Arena, that was it. But that one, like, you didn't train up your own Pokemon. You just picked Pokemon and fought other people online, which is cool. Like, but it wasn't, like, your Pokemon, right? Because that's every kid who grew up with Pokemon's thing. Is like, you want them to be your Pokemon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a Pikachu. This is my Pikachu.
Right.
And so having an MMO, I always thought was like the pinnacle of what that could be.
Yeah.
You know, and I know with how the internet is now, everyone would just net deck this shit and have the best 6 possible Pokemon and whatnot. But if you don't mind that and you just forget about that and you just don't,
and if they have a game on its own too, right?
Right.
Like, give the exploration and the NPCs and make it a game, and then the Pokemon Arena and the Pokemon Championships and the tournaments are all PvP, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it has the
you
PvE,
have those,
has
and
the
then
PvP.
you have your favorite team and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think an MMO would just always sounded like crazy cool. And then Temtem came out, which isn't Pokemon, but it's like it might be super cool. Like, I think it's something that I've wanted to pick up, and it was something that is on sale right now, and something I want to run by you guys. Like, could we play this? Like, would you guys be down to play a Pokemon-based MMO?
I'd definitely be down.
Yeah, I would play it for sure. I mean, one thing about Pokemon that I kind of wore out on was the Pokemon are very cute, and like some of them look like pretty badass when they're fully evolved, and some of the legendaries. But now that I'm a little bit older, like I like collecting demons and chopping their heads off with a guillotine to make more powerful demons, and battling with those a little bit more than a cute little Sandshrew. But
he's talking about Persona.
But I would play it, John, if you wanted to. Sure.
Okay. We do need a multiplayer game. I don't know if it's the one, but I think there's a chance.
Oh yeah, I've been playing Call of Duty.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was supposed to pick that up and play.
Yeah, spoiler alert! It's Call of Duty. It's
that's
trashy multiplayer. Fun. I'm sure I'll get bored of it in like a month and won't play it again, but it's okay. But all right, you guys ready to get into Resident Evil 4?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. So the way I've structured this one is I'm going to give a little bit of background in some of my notes from when I played the game, and some stuff that I looked up that I thought was pretty interesting. And then I've just got a list of discussion questions that I put together for us to talk about, a couple of which some listeners of the show sent in. So thank you for sending those in. I'll shout you out when we get to those ones. For anybody else listening who'd like to send us a question, you can email us questions at our email, giantsofbacklog@gmail.com. Send us your questions. We'll discuss them on the shows for the games that we play. All right, so that being said, Resident Evil 4 came out in January of 2005. It might be the oldest game that we've played on Giants of Backlog so far. That said, it followed Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, and Code Veronica. And I think Code Veronica came out in 2000, and then they did a remake of the original Resident Evil in 2002. And then there was this gap between that and Resident Evil 4. So all of the games that came out before Resident Evil 4, they have top-down perspective with fixed cameras that changes as you move throughout a room. Every room that you enter, there's a cutscene of a door opening that takes like 20 seconds. And it's old school tank controls, meaning that whatever way your character is facing, if you press forward, they're going to move in that direction. So it's really clunky compared to modern controls that we have today. So after releasing, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica, Capcom was trying to do something different with Resident Evil 4. They wanted to radically shake up the Resident Evil franchise, because those games, the gameplay was almost identical. The first, like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, they didn't even have fully rendered environments. They had basically still images representing the environment, and then you just moved across those still images, and then the zombies were there as well. And then with Code Veronica, they did fully rendered environments, and it all kind of looked like shit. But I mean, product of the time. So really quick, I just wanted to share my screen and show you guys Code Veronica gameplay. Let me know what you can see. You guys see that?
I see us.
Yeah.
I see us.
And I hear us.
This is a cutscene, and then there's going to be a boss.
No, Paul, you shared the Discord.
We just see this.
Oh. Hang on. This is what I want to share.
All right, now I see.
All right. So here's Code Veronica. The camera actually moves a little bit with you in this one. In 1, 2, and 3, it didn't move at all. There's the cutscene of the door opening. Every time you open a door, that happens. There's no aiming in this game either. You just click the button to shoot, and it kind of auto aims for you. But yeah, that's what it looks like.
I have a question,
Sure.
Paul.
Big jump.
You played Code Veronica,
Correct.
right? When did you play Code Veronica?
Recently, like
What makes you play? What makes you watch that and then go, I'm gonna play that game?
because I love this franchise and I want to know all the lore and stories of the older games that came before, and I love the characters.
Couldn't you read like a biography?
No, I want to get the gameplay experience. So, and I played
That's what we're missing, John.
Resident Evil Remake, which is like the same controls, so I was used to it.
I did too.
And I don't know. I heard Code Veronica was good. I want to play all the Resident Evil games eventually. But anyway, so that's what we're working with before Resident Evil 4. Code Veronica was the last non-remake, I'll call it mainline game to come out before 4. So with 4, Capcom wanted to shake up the gameplay dramatically. The gameplay between the first 4 games is like, they're basically the same game from a gameplay perspective. So they wanted to shake it up, and what they ended up doing was they made 4 different versions of Resident Evil 4. They were developed and then scrapped. And then after the 4th time, Shinji Mikami took over, and we got the version of Resident Evil 4 that we all played. One fun fact, one of those versions that was scrapped actually turned into Devil May Cry. And I think, like, my opinion is that, like, Resident Evil 4 did for the Resident Evil franchise what Call of Duty Modern Warfare did for Call of Duty. It saved a franchise that was getting repetitive and brought it to absurd levels of popularity. And I think there's 27 Resident Evil games now. And a lot of the design choices that they made for 4, they brought those forward into all of the games that followed up until Resident Evil 7, which came out in January of 2017. If you are into best of all time lists, like IGN's, Polygon's, yeah, you'll find Resident Evil 4 on all of those lists, usually somewhere in the top 40. It's just an iconic game that a lot of other games looked at, took some of the ideas they had and iterated upon them. So it's a game that I really loved, that I really wanted to play before the remake comes out in March. And I'm glad that I was able to do that and play alongside you guys. So I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything before we get into some of the discussion questions that I've put together. But that's kind of my background on Resident Evil.
If I were to say anything, I might infringe on your discussion questions. So
yeah,
but I think it was a widely influential game. I think before 2005, you didn't have a game like this at all, and I think even the modern day, like big cinematic action adventure games all riffed off of this game being one of the first.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. John or Alec, anything you guys want to add?
No.
Okay.
We get into
All
it.
right, so the first one I'm going to start with, I touched on this already for myself, but I want to know, what is everybody's experience with the Resident Evil franchise prior to playing Resident Evil 4? Had you played any of the games or watched any of the movies or the TV shows?
I'll start. No experience whatsoever.
Never even saw the movie?
I don't watch video game movies.
It's not about the video game at all.
Correct.
It's about the lore, man, and so you start with the movie and then you want to branch out.
What year is it?
I never saw it.
I haven't seen.
No, the only
back in middle school or high school.
Yeah.
I don't do scary stuff, dude.
It's more of an action
scary.
movie than a scary movie.
It's an action movie.
Yeah, this franchise.
How can it not be a video game movie if
it's not based on any of the
really.
games? Yeah, it's just set in the universe and uses the name.
So, from my experience with the franchise, this would have been the second time that I've played a Resident Evil game, and it was not very scary. So, like, I don't know if that was the point of the franchise as a whole, or if it shifted because of this game, but that was the only other one I played was Resident Evil 1. And I had a great time with it. I liked the tank controls and the skills and the still screen
PS1
because I had a lot more.
The remake.
No,
2002.
the remake. I played it on PlayStation 3 in my like gaming loft that was like so dark, and like anytime anyone would open the curtain, I'd be like terrified out of my mind because that one actually did scare you, and it did a great job at building suspense throughout the entire thing. And I liked the fact that it was like a older game of a point and click adventure on a still screen, because it was almost like 3D but 2D. So I was able to move very easily and position myself based on like where I was pointed and then shoot, and it would be fun. So I actually liked that a lot. The puzzles were awesome and built upon each other. And like you learned as you explored the residence.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed one a lot.
Spencer Mansion is awesome. I agree. The environment there in that one.
Mm-hmm.
That one was scary to me because I wouldn't be able to run around enemies, and I'd be like, fuck, and they grab you. But
yep.
Yeah.
I would go into a room, see what the layout was, and then if I couldn't handle it, go back out, plan a tactic, and then go back in.
Code Veronica, I think I told you about this, Jay. There's a fight in the middle of the game, and I had only been saving in one slot. And I got to this boss fight, and I did not bring enough, like I didn't have enough like special ammo for my rocket launcher or grenades or healing. And I just could not beat this boss with the ammo and healing that I had. I tried for like an hour, and I eventually just gave up and had to restart the game from the beginning. I got soft locked out of beating Code Veronica and had to start over. And I had played like 5 hours at that point, so like it really sucked. But
yeah, that was one of the things I learned early on, was just I'd started going 1 through 20 on all the save slots.
So like, I mean, I don't know, games just kind of brutal like that back in the day.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were harder. Yeah, I played Resident Evil 5 to completion co-op back in high school with a buddy, and then I started Resident Evil 7. I think I got like maybe 8 hours in, and that's probably one of the scariest games I've ever played. I haven't gotten around to finishing it. It's on my backlog. And I've always been interested in the series, just never gotten around to doing a deep dive. So I was glad that Paul picked this and forced me to do it, because now I've also played through 4. And I liked the movies as a kid because I was a dumb kid. I know they're objectively bad movies, but it was cool action when I was a kid. You know, the lady jumping around with double pistols, shooting bats out of the sky. It was dumb fun. And I think you like that more as a kid than you do as an adult. But I didn't watch the new show that came out. I heard from everybody who watched it that it wasn't good, so I didn't watch it. But yeah, that's my experience with the franchise.
Yeah, and I have seen the older movies. I haven't seen anything that's more recent, but yeah, same. I remember the plots being pretty bad in all of them, but cool action scenes. There's actually a part from the movie that I thought of when I was playing Resident Evil 4. The lasers. Jay, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a really cool scene
that
from one of the movies. I think, I don't know the actress, but she has to jump through a bunch of lasers, and it was really cool. So it was like a cool. Oh, okay, maybe that's where they got that from Resident Evil 4. Leon jumping through the lasers. All right, so next question I'm going to jump to. All right, ready? Let's clap out, John.
Yeah, take it.
1, 2. All right, we're going to get into the next question. So, do you guys remember any other 3D games that came out during 2005 that you played? I've got a list pulled up that I'll read off some other games that were reviewed well. Yeah.
Shadow Colossus.
Yep.
Yes, we did an episode on the remake that came out in 2017, and with that one, it was just a graphical remake, right? They kept the controls the same. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say so. That felt very similar.
Yes, that's a very artsy game. That's a little finicky. But some other ones that came out that scored above a 90 on Metacritic in 2005, the original God of War, GTA San Andreas.
That game was great.
Shadow Colossus we mentioned. Half-Life 2. Call of Duty 2. And Guild Wars came out that year. So those are some of the highlights.
Ooh,
you guys,
Guild Wars.
I did like Guild Wars.
I love that game. We should play it again.
We should. We didn't.
Anybody play
John didn't
any of those besides Shadow of the Colossus?
I played God of War.
Did you? So I'm curious. Like, so the rest of the question: how do like those games compare on a high level? Not to get into anything too deeply. How do those compare to Resident Evil 4? Because those are all third-person games, right?
Yeah, but I would also say that you didn't even mention the best games of that year. Lego Star Wars, the video game, came out that year. The best of the Lego franchise, easily. Kingdom Hearts 2 came out that year. The best 3D action game I've played. Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves. Another great one in my eyes.
Psychonauts did too.
And then Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah. Which I played COD 2, Lego, Star Wars, Star Wars Battlefront 2. And it's hard to compare a game like COD 2 to Resident Evil.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking of the third-person games like Psychonauts, Shadow Colossus.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a third-person shooter, and I loved the shit out of that game, and that was a ton of fun to play with friends, to play on your own in the solo. It felt great and fun to play. I mean, you jump, you throw grenades, you shoot. You play all Jedi battles. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, on that Mos Eisley's map. Mm-hmm. I really like the Galactic Conquest. We're getting off on a tangent, but I really like that Galactic Conquest mode from Battlefront.
Yeah, that was so much fun. So many hours in Battlefront 2. Same. It's too bad that the new ones weren't as fun. At least for me.
Yeah, same.
Weren't as fun. Taking away split screen hurt it for me.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. Because I replayed Battlefront 2 after playing like the new ones, and it still holds up with like the split screen sit down co-op. It's awesome.
Yeah, so when you guys think back to those games that, you know, we mentioned, and you think about Resident Evil that we just played, like, do you think if you were to go back and play any of those games, like, they would feel similar to how you felt when you were playing Resident Evil 4?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I think that, and I have gone back to Kingdom Hearts 2, the original Lego Star Wars, Sly 3. I played way after the fact. So like those games still hold up to this day and are fun games. Yeah. Battlefront 2 in particular, we got off on the tangent, but I'll reiterate again. I love that game. Like, that game is awesome. Recently replayed it, still holds up.
Recently, I've been playing the original Psychonauts as well to try and
beat that
before I play Psychonauts 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it holds up pretty well, but I do fight the controls a lot. It's not as good as I'm accustomed to nowadays with games.
Yeah. That one I want to just jump in real quick, because if we did hot takes this episode, my hot take.
Let's do hot takes. Let's segue and let's do it, John. What's your hot take?
My hot take is no game from the 2000s or earlier are worth playing. The controls are bad. The graphics are bad. if you're accustomed to playing games 2022, the masterpieces of old should belong in the past and don't play them.
Oh my god.
That's my hot take.
That's
half of our audience just closed the podcast.
I don't know.
Uninstalled.
I was gonna my hot take. If we want to keep going on the hot takes, no comments. Okay, my hot take was this is the episode that John and I get canceled on the internet because I've done some research.
No, we don't, because you know who plays video games? There's a bunch of olds, right? There's a good portion of olds that we know of, but then there's 100 million young people who, if they were to play any of these games that you guys were just talking about, would turn it off in the first 10 minutes because they fucking blow.
Yes. So this is the most, I would say my hot take for Resident Evil 4 is this is the most polarizing game I've ever played in my entire life. And I say that with the context of you have two camps, those that love this fucking game and were able to beat it and play it, and then those who cannot play this fucking game because of the controls. And I unfortunately fall in that one, and that's my hot take. This game is unplayable for me.
Did you have a hot take, Jay? I don't know if I really have a hot take.
Yeah, my hot take is that there should be no button mashing in any game ever. Because it fucking sucks. Button mashing is the worst thing ever. You fucking destroy your controllers faster. It's no measure of skill. It's just there for no fucking reason. Why do I have to click circle a million times? It's dumb. And if I don't click it fast enough, I die and I have to restart. It's just so stupid.
Yep.
I don't remember what game it was, but as a kid, there was a game that wasn't button mashing, but it was spinning the joystick.
Mario Party, probably.
Oh, it might have been Mario Party. Me and Dean literally wore our skin away right here. Just going like this on the controller, and we'd be like, yeah, we won. And then we'd look down, and it's just blistered and peeling. It's like, oh, that's not going to be good for like a month. Like, that's bad. I don't like that at all. Button mashing in Mario Party is more acceptable.
Was it skill? Was it skill?
I guess so.
QuickTime events I also don't like, but like there's some video games with the QuickTime events when you miss them are so fucking funny. What happens? So, but I think when you lose because you miss a QuickTime event, like I'm like scratching my nose or pouring another drink, and in the middle of the cutscene a QuickTime event comes on and I have to redo the whole fucking thing. Like, fuck you, game. I hate that shit.
Alright, that's fair.
And Paul, you didn't have a hot take?
I don't think I really have anything that's controversial that I thought about this game. If I think of one,
mine's not even controversial.
Yours is extremely controversial.
Yours is the most controversial.
You're going to jail.
I've ever had. Going to gamer jail.
If anyone can just like with a level head, with a 2022 head, go into a 2004 game,
you didn't hate Shadow of the Colossus.
If that was a 2022 title, would I have liked Shadow of the Colossus? Fuck no.
I just don't agree. I also played Psychonauts maybe 2 years ago. Probably right when we started the podcast, I played it, and I don't remember fighting with the controls. Yeah. Like, that's not what the controls and their clunkiness aren't what I remember from that game. So they couldn't have been too bad, or else that would stick in my mind, you know.
Hey John, I'm gonna say one thing. I'm gonna say one thing to you, and that's Spyro.
Yeah, I 100% understand that. And in the Spyro episode, I said Spyro is a master course for me in nostalgia, because Spyro's a 10 out of 10 for me. Does it deserve it? No. I admitted that in that episode.
I think that holds up, though. I think they don't just stay in the past. I think if you were to give
holds up because it's one of my favorite childhood games.
It does, for you specifically.
If I had never played Spyro, I tried playing it today, fuck Spyro, fuck that entire if I never played a mascot platformer as a kid and I played my first one today, I'd be like, why the fuck does this entire thing exist?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you can say that, and we don't really have a rebuttal because none of us.
I just don't agree with
it,
you.
including you. Yeah, so it's like I don't really know how to rebuttal that because yes, I've played those types of games. So yeah, if you've never played Spyro or a game and that's
if you've never used a twin stick controller, then I can see how you have
it's not even a thing.
If you agree or disagree with John, let us know in the comments below.
Here's the other thing about this about Spyro.
Controls better than a lot of the games.
I think that 2005 games can exist today if they're remade to today's standards. Resident Evil 4, where it's going to have a remake. Spyro was remade. That was the version we played. If I were to get on my PS1 and play Spyro, it would be so pixely that I wouldn't be able to see what's happening.
And the controls wouldn't be as clean, and yes, I understand. But I think my bigger issue with your statement is that the games belong in those eras, and I feel like that's just not true. Because I think
but the way I look at games is I play them today, and I don't transport myself back to when I was 10 years old. I'm
taking off those nostalgia covered glasses.
I am myself today. Is this game fun or not? No, this game fucking sucks because it's bad controls. Well, it's the best controls of its time. Right now, this game has shit controls. So go play a different game that was made in the last 5 years that have great controls.
A lot of those games are soulless, though. Like, they control great, but then there's just not a lot of depth, and they're not a lot of fun. Like,
I guess, and that's the other thing, right? Because you guys have played a lot more games than me. I know you guys have I don't know if you guys are running out of games to play that are good, but if you're not running out of games to play that are good, why play a game with shit controls from 2005?
Did you say depth or depth, Paul? Because that's another point that I'd like to make right now. Is I feel like
deep water.
I know you said depth, but I feel like you in particular are a glutton for punishment and death, and that's based on the fact that you love the Dark Souls, you love Sekiro, you love all these games that you learn and get better at through failing.
Yeah, I mean, I only died 30 times.
And I've noticed that about you
in RE4.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I do love games where there's a sense of I'm getting better, I'm learning. So yeah, that's probably part of it, I guess.
A glutton for punishment over there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on older games that you played and how they compare to Resident Evil 4?
No, we can move to the next topic.
Okay. So just quickly, there's a second part to this question. How does it compare to the modern third-person shooter? And then just think Uncharted, the newer games, Last of Us, Days Gone, Gears of War, games like those. I thought about The Last of Us a lot as I was playing through Resident Evil 4. It's got kind of a similar, maybe similar is the wrong word. They're both kind of scary, I guess. Last of Us definitely takes itself a lot more serious than Resident Evil 4 does. But, there's a lot of things you've got a companion system, third-person perspective, third-person shooter, zombie type enemies. I was constantly thinking about that game, and Last of Us is certainly a lot cleaner to play. But Resident Evil 4, other thing I didn't say, I played this game on PC, so I was, for probably 75% of it, I used mouse and keyboard. I used controller for probably maybe 3 hours of my playthrough, about 25%. I didn't think, when I thought back to Last of Us, I didn't think, man, this game controls so much better than Resident Evil 4. It's definitely better, but I didn't. It was marginally better, is what I thought.
It's-
Like the gunplay.
It's completely different. I think every single game that you listed has a different combat style. It's not comparing, like, there's no game like Resident Evil 4 where you're stopping when you're aiming and you're now an arcade shooter with enemies coming at you. Like,
that's the only difference.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Is that you can't move while you shoot.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
the
worse.
only difference.
but I feel like that's enough
Which is
of the
worse.
difference
You
that
see, like,
It's a choice.
in Gears, for example, enemy type is similar, right? A lot of the sound effects the enemies were making were the same. Gears stole the headshot noise from Resident Evil 4. And like you said, the companion thing, that's something that every big PlayStation exclusive game has now, is your main character and some little shit following you around, giving you more story. Whether it's what's her face from Last of Us, or what's his face from
Judy.
God of War, or
Mark.
yeah,
Judy and
Mark,
Ellie.
or Ashley from Resident Evil 4. It's the same DNA. Like, I see it throughout all games, modern games
Yeah.
now. Is
Even the experience
Certainly.
of playing as that a companion
I would-
for a short bit.
say that.
Obviously, I think it's much more well done
like Dill.
in The Last of Us than it is in Resident Evil 4. But I think that's what I was saying earlier. It's like a lot of games just took the ideas that are present in Resident Evil 4 and they've iterated on them and refined them.
I don't think that these ideas are exclusive to Resident Evil 4 either. I don't think that that's the case. Like, you guys are saying that, all these games pulled from Resident Evil 4 because it came
It's the blockbuster.
for it,
that
but I don't think
everybody
it was
thinks
the
of.
first that
if
it
you
did.
read interviews with developers of some of these games that were listing, they name Resident Evil 4 as a strong influence on their game. Maybe it wasn't the first to do it, but it was, the first to do it to wild success and popularity.
I mean, I don't know. I was fucking probably still shitting my pants in 2005. I still am today, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Question.
Go.
So let's say you love Last of Us. You love it. You're like, this is such a good game. And you hear Resident Evil 4 is like The Last of Us, but way worse. Why play Resident Evil 4? Why not just play something else?
You keep
you
reiterating
wouldn't-
that point, and I don't think that you're gaining a lot of love for it.
Yeah, it's.
I don't care about
It's-
love, man.
I
I'm
didn't
just
play it because
saying.
I thought, man, this is going to be one of the smoothest.
I'm just
gameplay
wondering why the hell
experiences.
this was even.
Well, I said earlier.
Because it's one of the greats everybody talks about. Why wouldn't
It
you want to
was
play
a
that?
love-
great. It
It is
was
a
a
I
great.
said earlier,
It is
like,
a
I
great-
love this franchise.
Was.
I
Not
wanted
everybody
to experience
talks
this
about it.
game because a lot of people say this is the best. This is the peak of the franchise.
It's like, here's the
I've played the modern
equivalent,
games already.
right? You watch movies, you love movies, and one of the greatest movies of all time is, I don't
The Godfather.
fucking know. No. I'm talking like a
I
1950s
do like
movie,
1950s
black and white,
movies.
Wizard of Oz.
right?
Yeah.
Psycho.
And-
Fans of movie will
Yeah,
want to watch that. Because
Right,
it's
but
influential
your
of the
action,
rest.
but like your, but
Nobody
like,
says it's like Resident Evil, but Resident Evil's worse. Nobody says that. Nobody says Everybody says Resident Evil was majorly influential and one of the best games ever made, and that's why we want to play it.
Yeah, it's like Gone with the
Nobody
Wind.
says it's like this game, but it's worse. I've
okay.
never heard that.
Yeah, in your movie analogy, John, it's like Gone with the Wind. It's this old movie, but it's, if you adjust for inflation, it's the highest
Saw that.
grossing movie of all time. Like, everybody went to go see it. You can still watch it on TV today, and it's a
but
fantastic
no one's gonna
movie.
enjoy
No,
it.
that's not true. Just because it's old and then they have remastered it in color, but like, honestly, when they do that, I don't think it usually looks good, and I prefer the black and white. It's iconic, there's a certain coolness to it, old school cool, if you will.
Yeah. What's the black and white Christmas movie?
A Miracle on 34th Street or A Wonderful Life.
Never seen
A Wonderful Life.
And
Yeah, watch every year. Black and white.
I haven't watched it, but
Well, you don't celebrate Christmas.
Okay, so I get a pass for that one, but I don't get a pass for this game.
No,
no. Like if you guys say that gaming is one of your favorite hobbies, right? And you are a fan of games, then you inherently would want to play some of the greatest games of all time, regardless of when they came out. I don't think
so. That's an assumption that I don't think makes sense for all people.
For you, but for 99% of the rest of gamers.
60%, I'll give you, maybe.
Well, 99%? I mean, there's like...
I want to go back to 1970 and play...
Okay, so John, there's
two... That was the first games, and they're awesome.
There's two camps of gamers, right? There's the gamers that buy Madden, FIFA, COD every year and just play those. That's more where you fall into.
Those aren't closer. Gamers.
That's closer to your...
Yeah, that is kind of closer to me, though.
And then there's me, Paul, and Gradle that have played hundreds of games throughout the years and like keep track of which games, there's the group of people that don't know when games are coming out. They don't know when a game came out. They just are like, oh, it's October, I'm buying COD, right?
Or we talk about voice actors, and you're like, just like... No.
I would argue 2K, the people who are 2K, Madden, FIFA, COD people, if you were like if you said, hey, you're a gamer, you play those all the time, they would say, no, I like sports and I like shooting games. They don't consider themselves gamers at all.
Right.
Yeah. I do consider myself a gamer. I delve a little bit. I don't buy Madden every year. I fucking hate Madden. Like, it's a terrible...
You were just playing the franchise mode on 2018.
Yeah, I was playing franchise mode on 18. Because
that's what I said.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said 21.
No,
it's like
18.
Because that was the last time I bought Madden. Because, once in a while, once every 10 years, I'll buy a Madden game. Before 18, my last Madden game was 04, and I played that for 15 years. But I'm not going to buy the thing every week. I'm in between. There's not two camps. There's people in between, too.
No, I'm not saying those people are gamers. I'm saying those are more the casual gaming fan. They might check out a couple games. That's the
generalization of the casual gaming fan. I would consider myself a casual gamer, but like a little deeper. Like,
let's say everyone's unique and is playing games to play games.
I mean, I don't know, maybe this is your point, but like the people who are buying COD every year in sports games aren't the people who are going to care about playing Resident Evil 4.
Sure, and I guess in that case, I am much closer to the people who buy COD every year. In that, obviously,
right? It's kind of the point of this fucking podcast itself is that we play games that are old on our backlog that we didn't get around to when they came out. So it's the whole point of this whole, like, this isn't a front log podcast where we're playing all the games that come out right when they come out because they're better and they control better. This is the Giants of Backlog where we play games on our backlog, which are old games.
Right, I understand that. And my opinion is games that came out when I was 10 suck ass compared to games today.
I mean, I played Code Veronica that came out when I was 5. I'm just interested in, that era of gaming.
Okay. John, how about Tetris?
I haven't played Tetris in 20 years.
Does it suck ass to Tetris nowadays?
No, it's the exact same game, but it's not. That's
like chess. And,
okay, I agree. Tetris has so many ways that it could improve.
Well, there's a lot of games that are just kind of timeless like that. COD hasn't changed in 10 years, probably.
Counter-Strike.
Yeah, and guess what I don't play?
I mean, it's fine. I just think, like, there's definitely an audience who wants to play older games like this to experience them themselves.
I think this boils down to my hot take, where this game is probably the most polarizing game I've ever played.
Yeah, and I mean, if this was my first Resident Evil game, I don't know. I might have felt the same way and dropped it. But I've played the modern games. You know, John, I've already played the newer game 7 and Village that controlled very well, and now I want more of the franchise, and I don't want to wait, until March for the remake to come out, and then 9, whenever that comes out. I want to experience it all as a fan of the franchise.
Yeah, I mean,
people on the internet play this game yearly, and
you're playing Persona 4 right now, John. When did that game come out?
It's old. Yeah.
And you said it's very good, right?
I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
So, I mean, to say any game that's old isn't worth playing is just...
That's fair. That's fair. I can't say every single game that was ever made before 2010 you shouldn't even look at. But I can say 93% of games that were made before 2010, even if they have a critical acclaim, you shouldn't look at.
All right, so let's
and if you watch a YouTube video of gameplay and it looks like absolute garbage, then it's probably garbage.
That's progress. Okay. I like it.
Okay, so let's just consider that Resident Evil 4 is in the 7% that John is against, and we can move to the next question.
Alright. Alright, so the next one. Let's just jump to... I'm just going to go down my list for now. The opening sequence. It left a very strong impression on me. I'm going to play just a couple minutes of the opening cutscene for you guys.
Oh, God. Why not all cutscenes? Whatever.
Alright. So there's a little bit of explanation on Leon's background, and then
Mexico.
There's our boy.
Special training via a secret organization working under the direct control of the president. I was to assume the responsibility of protecting the new president's family.
Cornel, why am I the one who always gets the short end of the stick?
Yo, who are you really? Come on and tell us. You are a long way from home, cowboy. You have my sympathies.
Guess that's a local's way of breaking the ice. Anyway, you know what this is all about. My assignment is to search for the president's missing daughter.
What? All by yourself?
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire. Then again, maybe you did.
Oh, you crazy American. It's a direct order from the chief himself. I tell you, it's no picnic.
I'm counting on you guys.
Hilarious.
Yeah, and then I'm not going to play the rest of it, but...
Okay.
So after that, you arrive at the village. The Spanish cops don't get out to help you. And it's very dark. You could kind of see from the cutscene. It's a lot of grays. Not a lot of color in this game. Very gritty. It's in Spain, which you can kind of tell from the music and then the accent of your drivers. You walk into that cabin.
Very, very bad Spanish accent.
Yeah, like comically bad.
That was Spain or Mexican?
I thought it was pretty good for the time.
Shut up.
No, it's supposed to be Spain. That's why they're white.
Oh, then they definitely should have an Espanol.
Yeah, they don't really have a Spanish accent. I have family members that are Spanish, and they don't sound like that.
They tried. Well, they didn't really try, but they did what they did.
No, they just...
No, but it's so cheesy that it's funny.
Yeah, so you...
It's like, I didn't tag along so we could sing Kumbaya at a Boy Scout campfire. It's just, like, that's kind of writing you don't see anymore, which is hilarious.
Yeah, so you walk into that cabin to ask a local, you show him a picture of Ashley, and he responds by grabbing an axe and, raising it to walk toward you. Leon tells him to stop, pulls his gun out, and, is forced to shoot him because he's deranged.
So, can I read through my first 3 notes for this game?
Yeah, go for it.
Dialogue is so bad. Pull up the opening scene dialogue, which you did. Thank you. They're in Spain, but the locals have Mexican accents.
I thought it was Mexico.
Note number 3, controls are very bad.
Yeah. That about sums up my first impressions of the game, too. I literally took control of this game, and I was like, holy crap. Yeah. I don't think I can play this.
I fucking hated this game in the first 4 hours.
Yeah, I want to talk about after. So you kill the guy in the cabin, you go upstairs and you steal a bunch of shit from his house. You go outside, you dispatch a couple of other villagers coming at you with axes, and then you make your way down the road. And I want to know, did you guys find the dog stuck in the trap?
Yeah, I freed it.
Did you guys free the dog?
You had a choice to? Yeah, we freed
Yeah, you could ignore it. You didn't have to free it.
Oh, okay.
You could walk past it.
So, spoiler alert, if you freed that dog,
helps you in a bus.
Yeah, when you fight the giant, the dog will come out.
Gigante.
So that was kind of a cool payoff. And one thing they showed like the opening scene in the RE4 remake, and he walks by that trap and the dog is already dead. So people are speculating that it's going to have a much darker tone than the original 4. But I'm always a sucker for when, little things you do like that end up having a payoff in the gameplay down the road, kind of coming full circle. So I thought that was kind of a nice moment when the dog jumps in.
Yeah,
I didn't expect that at all.
It's probably the best moment of the game for me.
It was cool. But what I want to talk about is when you eventually make your way into the heart of the village, and there's all the villagers kind of mumbling around, and they all start attacking you. And it was really intense. There were so many of them, and they just kept coming. And I'm just running through the village looking for those blue medallions, dispatching them. The combo I kept running to was headshot 1 to stagger it, run up, kick it to knock down all the villagers around it, and then pull the knife out and knifing until it died. So I did that. I got a bunch of ammo, but I was starting to get overwhelmed, and I was like, I lost a couple chunks of my health bar, and I was like, shit. And then the bell rings, and they all just stop. There's that cutscene, and I wasn't expecting that at all, and it was just such a kind of relief. Like, oh, okay. It just seemed like there was going to be no end, and it was a very cool moment when the bell rang, and they all just kind of walked away. And then Leon has a great line. He says, "Where's everyone going? Dingo?" And I just laughed out loud. What did you guys think? What do you think of that opening scene? Did you die a couple times?
Yeah. I died a handful of times here. Yeah. It was hard. What I ended up doing was just running up one of the ramps and shooting down at him until the bell rang was the way I beat it. But it was definitely like, oh shit, what do I do?
This was the point in the game where I decided to stop trying to play the game, and I just tried running around. So I tried beating the enemies, and like we would do the same route and like slowly adjust, dying like 10 times because that's fun, and I learned something by doing that. But then I realized maybe I should just not, and then I ran away from enemies, and then when that bell rang, I realized, oh, okay, it was just a time section, so maybe I just shouldn't fight anyone this entire game. So that's my takeaway from that.
So
learning.
Did you not fight any of them? Did you just run around and then? Because that's what I wondered. Like, could I just save the ammo?
That's what I ended up doing towards the end when I realized that both doors were locked and I was trying to find an exit. I just started running and avoiding people and trying to avoid bear traps. And I just was avoiding for the length of that because of my 7 or 8 failed attempts. And then John and I turned it into a drinking game later where each time we died, we would chug for an additional second and we got hammered by the end of that.
Well, that was what I thought was kind of cool about it. Was like I didn't know that bell was gonna ring. I just kind of like towards the end before it did, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Like, this is so hard. This is gonna be impossible." And then all of a sudden, there's that cutscene, and it's just like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Just instant relief. Any thoughts, John?
No, for the most part, what Alex said. I mean, we could talk about the bell ringing and all the zombies or whatever they are going to the church.
The Ganados.
I mean, it's strange that in that situation, whoever has control of the bell wouldn't just kill you first.
Yeah, I mean, we can speculate. Like, it's probably Sadler, right?
Well, they probably had Bingo.
Yeah, or Bingo. That's another valid
That's
theory.
probably a more likely scenario.
Yeah, Bingo has to start at the same time every day.
Mm-hmm.
Or else the olds will get confused.
Yep.
Alright. Okay, so I thought overall my first impression of this game was very strong. It sounds like you guys were put off by the tank control system and then the shooting mechanics where you gotta stop by holding the trigger and then aim and then you press X to fire.
It was the trigger, but it wasn't the tank controls. I think it was the combination of the tank controls and
the tank controls,
the camera.
The terrible.
I was fighting the camera more than I was fighting enemies in that first 30 minutes, and that's what was really messing with me.
Yeah,
when you get put off by the controls,
no
right? That's fair. But when you get put off by the controls in the first minute of a game, it makes it hard to play the game.
And I'm sorry for saying camera. What I meant to say was the tank controls where I would face my character in one direction, and then Leon would turn 90 degrees when I went to aim, and then I would have to move slowly back to where I had originally tried to aim.
So, I mean, controls are bad. It takes some getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that suffice to say, right?
Yeah.
I do think it was easier to control with a mouse and keyboard than a controller. Like I didn't say this, but like I played this on Steam and I used the HD mod. There's a couple of people who made a mod where they remastered all the textures and full HD resolution. And then they had a couple of sliders. One of them was an FOV slider. So I actually zoomed out a little bit. So my camera was a little bit further away from Leon. So I could see kind of things around me a little bit better. Not a lot, but it did help, I thought. But shout out to that team. That was a great mod. The game looked great for a game that came out 17, almost 18 years ago. And did you guys all play on Xbox?
Yeah.
All right, so we are introduced to the Ganados in the village. That's the name for the people, the villagers you encounter. I don't know if it's canon because it's in some of the notes. But I wanted to talk about, like, the next question is the different enemies. So we've talked about the village, but there's also, in addition to the Ganados, there's two other factions. There's the cultists and there's the soldados. And each faction has a few different varieties. You've got your basic ones. Like the Ganados, you've got your basic axe enemies, and they can throw the axe as well. Some of them have dynamite. Some of them are armed with pitchforks. And there's the other one I remember is the chainsaw enemies. The basic Ganados, like, I don't know, you can get hit probably, I don't know, a bunch of times. Probably 4 or 5 times at the beginning of the game before your health bar is depleted if you're full health. The chainsaw enemies, though, if you get hit by, like, that's it. 1 hit and you're dead.
Yeah, that was the first 30 minutes of the game where I was trying to get past the chainsaw guy to get to the door, and then realized it was locked.
Yeah. So how I dealt with him was I used a grenade, and then I don't know. He has a lot of health compared to the other enemies. But what did you guys think, kind of before we dive in, of overall the enemy variety in the game? Was there enough?
I didn't know you could kill the chainsaw guys until later in the game. I would always just shotgun them to knock them down and then run past them. And then have to keep in mind that this chainsaw guy's behind me as I'm fighting through the people ahead of him.
Yeah, and the benefit of killing them is I think they drop a lot of money.
Yeah. At least they do later in the game. I don't know. I didn't kill any in the beginning.
Yeah. All of the enemies, they have dialogue. So the Ganados, they all speak in Spanish, but the Ganados will say the same things, and you can always hear them when you're walking through a level. And that kind of adds to the tension, because you'll hear that they're enemies, but you won't be able to tell exactly where they're at, if they're inside a building or if they're somewhere else in a field. The cultists do this really creepy chanting.
The chanting was just stuck in
I know,
my
I
head
can still hear it.
forever, because it's the same 2 words, and 2 of them will sing different parts of the chant.
One thing...
So you kill one of them, part of the chant goes away.
Yeah, and then, one thing in this game, I felt so powerful compared to the older games in the franchise that I've played. And I think they did a nice job of balancing that by throwing way more enemies at you at once than they did in any of the previous games. And there's sequences early on where there's no end to the Ganados. They just keep spawning. There's a part where you cross some water, and I had a ton of ammo, so I was like, I'm just going to kill all these guys and, pick up their gold and pick up the ammo that they drop and get rich, because I have the ammo to do it. And they just kept spawning, and more would spawn. And I finally realized after like 10 minutes of doing that, like, I'm not meant to. The game doesn't want me to kill them all. It's impossible to do that. I need to just get through this path and then get by the chainsaw enemy to get through the door. Which was good for me, I thought, because I conserved a bunch of ammo. So the question for you guys is, what did you think of the inventory management and thoughts on the scarcity of resources? So ammo, healing items, grenades, etc.
So I've played similar horror games where ammo management is a big deal, and typically I do very poorly because I'm a scaredy baby, and I'll see an enemy and I'll just fucking unload on it, which hasn't served me well in the past. So throughout this game I was typically pretty low on ammo, like very low on ammo, and but I'd always had more healing than I needed because I'd just unload on shit and they wouldn't get to me to be able to hit me. So I had more healing and not enough ammo for the majority of my playthrough.
Yeah, I don't think I ever ran out of ammo. Like, I'd run out of ammo for my TMP, but then I just switched to my pistol. And then when I ran out of ammo in my pistol, I'd have collected more ammo for my TMP. And then I just used the shotgun when I needed a little bit more firepower. So I always had shotgun ammo. I think this game is way more generous than the games that came before it in terms of resources. I always had a ton of grenades as well for boss fights.
So, boss fights, I beat every boss with one shot because I always bought the rocket launcher and it would one shot all the bosses. So I didn't even have to
I didn't know that.
fight them really. And it was, I mean, I like it. If we're going to talk about the Salazar boss, I want to talk about how I accidentally beat that boss.
Yeah, let's just go there.
Okay. So, remind me again. Salazar is the short guy, right? In the castle.
Correct.
So,
Napoleon.
the boss scene opens up. He gets eaten up by this giant fleshy plant, and then it becomes like tentacles and a big mouth with an eye, and then he's like in a plant behind the mouth. So I started it out, and I shot both tentacles, and they both died, and then the mouth came to attack me, and I got out my rocket launcher, and I thought I had to shoot the head. But I missed the head and went past the mouth, and behind him was that Salazar that opened up in the plant, and the rocket launcher accidentally hit him, and it died.
Accidentally hit him?
I beat the boss. Yeah, I missed, but it actually hit the actual boss, and I ended up beating it right away without knowing what I did.
That's the speedrun.
That's awesome.
Right
I didn't even know you could kill the tentacles on either side. I didn't even try, so I just had to dodge them constantly.
Yeah, which I think is kind of funny, because, I mean, the rocket launcher is, like,
it's expensive.
30,000?
Yeah.
So just every time before, like, a boss, there's always a merchant right outside the door. Buy a rocket launcher, you go in there, and you don't even have to use your ammo. You just win the fight, which I thought was pretty fun. Now the one where they throw two El Gigant,
yeah, the lava pit.
Whatever. Yeah, that one was tough because I had to use my actual ammo. But and it's funny, after you beat the game, you unlock unlimited ammo rocket launcher. So maybe to get these guys to beat the game, maybe they could come over and play on one of our new game pluses and get the unlimited ammo rocket launcher and just play through it, being able to one-shot everything.
Yeah, that's true. I never used it. You got a couple for free. I never bought one. I was really dumb with mine though. It's the first time I used it, it was in the insect hive where it actually gets taken by the bug. I used it to shoot the drawbridge and make it fall down. But I didn't know. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just used it. But yeah, I could have just. I figured out. I could have just used a pistol bullet to shoot the chain once, and it would have done the same thing. No, I just wasted my my OP rocket launcher ammo on that.
Yeah.
Great, John. Thoughts on the Salazar boss fight specifically?
Only watched it in the speedrun, so...
How'd they kill it in the speedrun?
Rocket launcher.
Same way Jay did?
Rocket launcher. Yeah, and you beat everything with the rocket launcher.
Oh, okay.
That's how you beat the game.
So I fought him normally, and yeah, what you said, Jay, you had to shoot the head, and then his pod would open up, and then you shoot him. It's really funny when you shoot him, because he screams so I was laughing a lot when that was happening.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I used a rocket launcher was when the cage dropped down and you're in the room.
I wish I had a rocket launcher.
The blind guy with the claws. Yeah. And I was like, this is impossible. There's no way I'm going to beat it. Let me try using this rocket launcher. And then I pulled it out, and I didn't see a number next to the ammo. So I was like, oh, this must be unlimited ammo. And I shoot it, and it's gone, but everything in the room died. And I was like, wait a second. This thing is OP. I'm going to buy another. So
I had a hard time with that as well. I don't know. I just had to run around until I killed all the enemies outside the cage. And then I killed the one in there, and then finally I dealt with him. But I did see after I got out of there that there's a lever on the wall that I could have shot to open it up and give myself room to maneuver. But I just did it the hard way. I kind of like that the game, it was possible to do it the hard way. If you were smart and you looked around the environment and you saw that there was a lever, because you had to shoot it anyways to get out. But I didn't look like it was too hectic. There were too many enemies and I was dodging the blind guy with the blades, so I didn't see it when I was fighting him. But if I had been more observant, I could have seen that lever, I could have shot that, and I could have made that fight much more manageable for myself. So I think this game in general rewards you for paying attention to the environment. Which kind of plays in well to another question we have. Did you find a lot of the treasures hidden in the level during your playthrough?
No, I tried to get as fast as possible through this game.
So you could buy a map for each level from the merchant, and then it would show up and you could have an idea of where it was. And if you knew to look in a room, it made it a lot easier. A lot of them I did find just because they sparkle, and if you're kind of taking your time through a room, it's easy to see that stuff.
Yeah, I also found a lot of the treasures. I'd even go out of my way for them because I was spending a lot of money on rocket launchers. So I kind of needed them to be able to bankroll my spending habits at the merchant, as well as, upgrade my guns and shit.
Yeah, we've mentioned the merchant a couple of times. Let's talk about the merchant and the progression in Resident Evil 4.
Incredible voice acting on the merchant. I loved it.
What are you gonna
What are you
buy?
buying?
What are you buying?
It's
What are
iconic.
you selling? I'll buy it at a high price.
I think those blue flames that you see
Stranger.
whenever you encounter him, those are the original bonfires.
Whenever you, you're talking about for Souls
Yep.
games.
Like Souls got
That
it
was
in this game.
Bringing up every time he bought a rocket launcher, he'd go, "Stranger, stranger, now that's a weapon." It's just a lot of charm in this game, I think, and it bleeds through.
Yeah, so you can buy weapons from him. You can he sells some healing. And he sells a couple of miscellaneous things. Toward the end of the game, you can buy like a tactical vest, which lowers the damage you receive by 30%. So I put that on, and then, man, my health bar was full at that point as well, and I was just so strong. Does he sell anything else, Jay?
The first aid spray you mentioned, he'll buy attachment, or he'll
Yeah,
sell attachments for your guns.
So did you buy any of the attachments?
I bought the TNP
Stock.
stock, and I bought the scope for the mine
Launcher.
mine shooter.
Yeah, I bought stocks for mine shooter. Yeah, so he sells weapons. I think I bought the Red 9 from him, and I bought the TMP, and I found the shotgun. I mentioned the blue medallions. We were talking about the opening segment of the game. There's 15 you can find in the village in the graveyard, and if you find 10 of them, he'll give you another pistol called the Punisher.
Yeah, which
isn't very good. The Punisher is basically the pistol, but it's piercing, so your bullets will go through one enemy and hit another, but it's pretty weak. And I used it, and I wanted a better pistol, so I just bought the Red 9 when that was available.
Yeah, you get the Red 9 immediately after.
Yeah, so I sold it back to him, and I bought the stock. And the stock made headshots so easy because it just stabilized the laser to almost completely still. and they just really made the game a lot easier for me too, especially because I was using a mouse. So when I didn't have the sway to worry about, it was just like, okay, when I want to hit a head, I'm gonna hit a head. The other cool thing, so the merchant, like besides selling you guns, attachments, and healing, I wish he sold ammo. That's my one thing, is because I would have loved to just spend some of my extra money on ammo, but oh well.
That's what we had said, but it was like he sells everything but ammo. So we were upgrading guns, and the only guns we had were the pistol and the rifle. That was it.
Really wish he would have sold some ammo.
Yeah, you could farm ammo if you just went into a room and headshot, kick to knock them down, and then use your knife to finish them. You use one bullet, and I'd say there's like a 25% chance that they drop bullets. If they drop something, it's probably like 75% that they drop money. I only had to do that maybe once. I just never, like when I run out of ammo with one gun, I'd use another gun that I've been hoarding bullets with. But you guys touched on it. The other thing you can do with him is you can upgrade your weapons to make them more powerful. So the ones that I remember, you can upgrade firepower, you can upgrade the weapon capacity, so each clip holds more bullets. You can upgrade your reload speed. And I think that was it. And then if you fully upgraded a gun, you could purchase a special upgrade. So for the Red 9, I maxed that out, and it makes it do even more damage. So the firepower is like almost as strong as a shotgun at that point. The special on the shotgun is it makes its damage do the same regardless of the distance between you and the target.
That's the one. That's the only one I maxed out was the shotgun.
And then the TMP increases the firepower.
Didn't buy either of those, so.
And then I know I think we talked about this earlier. Like there is some of the progression is locked based on your progress in the game. It'll only let you upgrade your gun so far based on where you're at in the game. It was always nice to get to the merchant in a new area. Like I felt safe. It plays a really calming music if he's by a safe room. And you get to him and he's like, got some new items in stock for you. All right, what should we jump to next? Let's do another question, more of a general one. So what are your guys' thoughts on the level design? And like specifically, which of the 3 areas was your favorite and which was your least? You want to go first, Jay?
Sure. My favorite area was the castle. I just like the vibes there more. I think the village was too scary. And my least favorite was the island because I didn't really like fighting against army people. So my favorite is the castle part 2.
Yeah, and I agree. Island was my least favorite as well. I didn't enjoy fighting against people with guns. In a castle, I didn't even like fighting against the guys with crossbows. It just didn't fit the vibe of like a zombie horror game for me, that they're zombie army guys. And I hated the army guy with the Gatling gun.
Oh yeah, he was a little stinker.
Yeah, he just sucked. He had so much health, and he just did so much damage. It sucked. It was hard to cross areas without getting hit by him either. My favorite area was definitely the village, probably for the reason it wasn't your favorite. It was too scary. I liked it. It was creepy. It was dark and it was gritty. And I don't know. I've played Resident Evil Village as well, and it was cool to kind of compare and contrast in my head and see the inspiration that they took in that game from this one. And like my favorite moment in the game is when you go back to the village with Ashley and all the Ganados start coming out from the gate, and you barricade yourself in that house with Lewis, and you just have to hold out there and take them all down. And I just love it. It's so chaotic. There's like, you go upstairs and there's a fire in the basement, and they're all trying to climb up in these windows, and I'm just running from window to window to window, pushing the ladders down. And like when they're coming up the stairs, just like pulling out my pistol to whip a headshot. And it was just so intense. The music is so good in that scene. It's cool to fight with Louise, who's a lot more capable than Ashley. And I really enjoyed that part. It kind of finished the fight from earlier where you're only saved because the bell rings. Like this time you take them all out. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, this was the first stopping point for me where it just was done with this game.
The cabin fight that I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it took maybe 20 tries on that. I don't know the full count on that.
Yeah, it was definitely tough.
The annoying part about that area, about that fight, was that the save point of that fight was the previous area when you're
you had to watch the
the
cutscene
cutscene
over and over and over.
So you had to rewatch the cutscene every single time you did.
The cutscene was
it didn't
awesome.
take us 20 tries, but
you can skip.
It was
not unless you. I learned
by
after
changing
the
the
fact you can
settings.
change the setting. Yeah.
No, you can hit the left. I forget. Is that the two squares on the left middle button?
I skipped a lot of
That
cutscenes.
skips the cutscene. Took me a while to figure it out. Too.
I really like the cutscene in
I hit
this
like
one.
every button. But
I googled it, and when I googled it, the internet said the only way to skip that cutscene was to turn cutscenes off.
No, I didn't go into settings. You can skip it.
Oh.
Because I was having the same frustration because I kept dying and have to go watch the whole thing, and it would only skip cutscene sections that you don't have a quick time event. So if there's a quick time event, then you have to watch that cutscene. But if there isn't, then you can skip it.
This looks like crap, but I love this cutscene.
Let's just stop because I don't want to watch this cutscene for the 40th time.
In that cabin.
What are you talking about? This looks like how the game looks.
Yeah, this does look about the
So eerie.
Leon. Small world, eh? Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics, too.
How rude! And I don't believe there's any relevance with my figure and my standing. Who are you?
Oh, excuse me, Your Highness. Perhaps the young lady might want to introduce herself first before asking someone his name.
People love this game because it's so bad. I just want to clarify that.
You mean like the dialogue?
The dialogue is so bad that people love it.
Oh, I think people like it because it leans into the cheesiness. Doesn't try to.
Okay, so
take it
cheesy
serious.
being another word for bad, right?
Bad.
Ashley, upstairs.
I mean, you guys can sit here and just say bad, but
I think bad is funny.
It's entertaining. It's funny.
Yeah, like.
Well, I guess
You
yeah.
could
If
also
you
just have an
can find
entertaining.
it funny,
That's good.
but if you've been shit on up till this point and you've hated the game, I don't think you can see past that to the point where bad content becomes funny. Like, I get it. SpongeBob's so bad it's funny, or certain things are so bad they're funny.
It took me almost
It's
19
campy.
hours to beat this game, and I died 54 times.
I died
total.
54 times in the first 5 hours I played. So.
Right, so there might be something that just wasn't clicking for you guys with this game. Because I think Paul only died like 30 times.
Mm-hmm.
So just maybe you guys it wasn't clicking, and bashing your head against something, getting frustrating with it, taking out all your hate on it. I mean, I can see it because I was in the same boat for.
I agree. I watched that cutscene one time. if I had to watch it 40 times, I probably wouldn't think it was funny and like it as much. But I don't know. Did you guys move the bookshelves to block the windows downstairs?
No.
You can block all the windows downstairs so that you only have one entry point, and Lewis basically covers that entry point. And when they knock them over eventually, it triggers the part where you run upstairs. And then when I was upstairs, I just ran from window to window, knocking the ladders down. And they only had the entry point of the staircase, so I just had to shoot them when they come up the stairs.
Yeah, I feel like the game just eventually gave it to me because I didn't ever have to go.
That's another thing that exists in this game. There is a hidden dynamic difficulty system. If you're dying a lot, the game tunes the difficulty down, so fewer enemies spawn, and they're more basic enemies for that faction. And on the alternative, if you're doing really well, the game spawns more enemies, and they're more elite versions, and they're more likely to pop with Plagas heads. So I thought that was kind of cool. That's a lot of things that a lot of games have built in now. I don't know if Resident Evil 4 was the first to do it, but it's cool that it's hidden so it doesn't make you feel bad because you don't know about it. But if you're dying a lot, it tries to help you get through stuff. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't meant to be a difficult game.
But I didn't notice it in this game. Until, now that you say it, I didn't actually have to play because I died so many times.
The reason we didn't notice it, though, was because we were done with the game in the first hour.
5 hours.
I guess.
Oh, yeah, we were done with the game.
We were walking down that first trail, and the controls were so bad, we're like, we don't want to play this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that led me down the line of not wanting to play it to the point where I wasn't playing it. So then I had a pistol and a rifle, and by the time we got to the
get
castle.
To an area, so you get to an area where it's actually difficult, but you haven't wanted to play the game for 6 hours of gameplay. Doesn't fucking matter. Nothing really matters. The gameplay is so bad that nothing in the game matters.
That's what I'm saying is, like, you guys were mentally checked out after the first hour, right? So at that point, you were not going to like this game no matter what. You had no willingness or intent to stick with the game and learn the combat. You just were going to play your one day, and so you could talk about it on this podcast.
No, I tried. I bashed my head against the wall for 40 times and watched that same cutscene.
Right, but you already decided in the first hour that you hate the game. And if you read my notes, I also decided that, but I wanted to play this game for Paul. So at the end of the game, I ended up loving this game. And it's because I stuck with the shitty controls until I figured it out later on.
You and anyone who has finished this game, you're
right. But everybody probably has a similar experience of it, starting up and being like, ooh, this is rough. And then as they learn it, as they continue, as they get more comfortable with it, they end up liking it.
Yeah, we're back at the Bennett Foddy argument.
Right. But, like, that's the difference between me and real gamers is I will not like a game. I will say, oh, this game, I didn't like it. This game sucked. I'll cross it off my list. Whereas you guys, you will play a game. You'll be like, I don't like this game. And you'll stop playing it. And then it'll be on your backlog.
Well, if this was just some random game I picked up off of Steam, then yeah, I'm with you. Like, well, shit. I made a mistake buying this, and I'm not going to finish it, and I'm done with it. But because it has so much positive word of mouth, that's why I wanted to stick with it and see it through. And that's why, like, we make this podcast where we finish games on our backlog. For that reason, is a lot of games you don't stick with, but you hear really good things about them, or your friends want to play them with you, and that's why we're holding each other accountable to play games on our backlog on this podcast, you know. So to sit there and just say, well, I didn't like the controls and therefore it's a bad game. I mean, it's being
that
reductive.
is a definition of a bad game. Is the control suck
to you? I didn't say the controls sucked. I said I didn't like the controls, therefore it's a bad game.
Yeah.
Right? And that's being reductive. Do you agree?
I don't know that what's reductive.
Simplifying.
Yeah, let's table.
I guess, but I think it is pretty simple. If the controls suck, then the game sucks. Because that's a very major and central part of any game.
Well, I'll go back. I mean, there's so many people that bounced off this games, and it never, this game sucks to me and John and to those people. The people who I guess are better gamers than us, let's just call them that, because they can play this masterpiece of a game, which I watched the whole game, and I definitely got to the point where I was like, oh, I wish I had played this game, but I can't play it because it is unplayable for me. And that's just what it is. So, unfortunately, I will never finish this game because I cannot play it. It's not that I will bounce off of it. It's not that I didn't put in the time to learn it, because guess what? I put in 5 hours of bashing my head against the wall. And if you wanted me to beat this game, okay, tell me to beat this game. We could have put this podcast off the full 4 months, because I would have fucking done it. And guess what? It would have taken me 40 hours to beat this game, because I cannot play this game for me personally. So that is the aspect of the controls. So I'm glad that this game has a lot of great level design, and that it's flowed through to the progressive medium to become the masterpiece that it is. But if you boil it down to the one aspect of the fact that I cannot play it, that John cannot play it, that 50% of the people cannot play it, let's just say that, it makes it very difficult to love this game. And I'm so happy for the people that were able to play it and love it. And every single review, I've done a lot of research. Every single review has said the same thing that you're saying, Jay. The controls are clunky, but once I got used to them, unfortunately, I couldn't get used to it. And so that's the situation I'm in. And maybe we can re-record this podcast in 4 months if you want to try and do that. And I will do it. I will do the 2.5 hour segments twice a week for however long it takes to beat this game. But I will not change my thought behind that, because I do not think I will get better at the controls of this game. That is just me. And that's it.
Right on. No, I agree with you. And I'm not saying this game is a masterpiece by any means at all. In fact, I have a lot of issues with the game. But to just say it's bad because the controls are clunky and old, that's what I think there's some good here too.
Yeah, I boiled down to the point where
that's my point of view. As somebody who's not a video game person, who's so deep into like the culture of it, my point of view is I like modern games. I like games that control well. That's my point of view. That's been my point of view. Like, if somebody is, like, we're older, we're all nearing 30, but if there's somebody who is younger who hasn't played games for 20 years, and I've played games for 20 years, but I played the same game for 10 years and the same game for 10 years, and now I'm getting into a variety, right?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't bring it up earlier, but talk about the controls of RuneScape. Are they modern controls?
The controls of RuneScape is point and click. Yeah. No, but they do exactly what you expect them to do. I click on this spot, I go to that spot. This game, I ADS, and I guess my controller was
there is no ADS
aimed 170 degrees this way, and I look this way.
Yeah, it was very discombobulating, but I don't know if that's a product of time or what.
I agree with you. That happened to me a lot too.
Fair. But, like, it's fair that it's not a product of the time. Maybe, but yes, RuneScape controls, like, it's not a modern game. Everyone knows that. But if I click here, I go here.
Yeah, but to, like, quick swap gear and shit, that's not... Like, I bounce off that, when I'm playing RuneScape.
Yeah, but you don't know how to get... You gotta set your left keys, and you gotta get used to your clicks.
It's the same thing. I have to get used to it.
No, but like, did you get used to it where you ADS'd in Resident Evil 4 and you'd be aiming straight?
No, I would look somewhere else, but I would run backwards and then aim, and then I go slowly, then
so
and then
you
I'm
didn't
wobbling.
Get used to it in the case where
I got used to
it acts exactly how I expect it to act. You got used to it in this is shit, but I'm cool with it being shit.
No, I got used to it, and this is exactly how I expect it to act, which is the way it's taught me how it's going to act, not that it's the way I want it to act.
It's garbage, but it is how I know that's how it's going to be. RuneScape, yes, it's old, but you hit F1, you go to your inventory, you click your 6 pieces of armor, and your 6 pieces of armor are on. Resident Evil 4, you ADS one button, and you're fucking looking behind you now.
90 degrees.
Oh, now,
90
but
degrees.
I'm used to having to turn 180. Fuck that shit.
90 degrees.
That's a valid point. Very valid point. Aim down sights.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
I remember the boss fight.
But...
If we're gonna talk about boss fights on any point, but I'm just gonna put this. I remember the boss fight.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into characters, and when we cover we'll cover Salazar, we'll cover Krauser, we'll cover the village chief, and we can talk about the boss fights then. That's kind of how it's laid out. Before we do that, though, I wanna get your thoughts on what you guys thought about the puzzles in this game. Alec, I know you mentioned that you were a fan of the puzzles in Resident Evil Remake, so I'm really curious what your thoughts are on the puzzles that you did for this one.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I love the puzzles in Resident Evil 1, and so with that frame of mind and reference, the only puzzles that we got to were all very juvenile and stupid of me pulling up the map, picking a guess of where the key or the one piece I needed was going to be, running to that point, grabbing it, and then running to the door. So it kind of, and again, I didn't play the game right, so that's on me, I guess. But it wasn't really puzzly. It was more of just like a collecting
jigsaw puzzles
part.
Is what I call them.
And then, yeah, and then the one puzzle with the lights. Okay, we can move things into place, and that's fine. Later on in the game, what I saw from just online, not actually playing, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like the bigger picture aspect of collecting the 3, because that was one thing that we got to the mansion, and John and I were like, oh, we got to get through this door, and I'm like, oh, that's a chimera. That's going to be fucking later on broken into parts, and sure enough, it was. Not that we got any of them, but it's part of a progressive puzzle solving. But I don't think that any puzzle that I saw either in the speedrun or what I played really gathered much thought. The one that I was confused about was the door with the lines. So I'm sure you learned something about that. I'm curious on your take about that. That's my only one.
Yeah, so
to the room with the frozen guy. Is that a good way of describing it?
The regenerators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
there was that puzzle that was like a line.
Yeah, I can't remember that one off the top of my head. So my thoughts on puzzles in this game is there's basically 2 kinds. There's jigsaw puzzles, which you described, where you've got to collect 3 pieces, of the tile to unlock a door. And to collect each piece, usually there's a challenge that you have to do. So you've got to go to this part of the map. There's a strong enemy there that you've got to defeat, or some kind of door that you've got to figure out how to unlock with Ashley to get the piece. And then you're right, you're just collecting the piece of the jigsaw puzzle and putting it together. That's a staple in the franchise. I think every Resident Evil game has.
And that's what I liked in 1.
And the other puzzle, and you talk about the lights one to form the cult religious symbol. There's a few like that where they're logic puzzles. The other one that I remember was in the castle. There's these tiles that you have to shift around to form a picture. And I think you do that one with Ashley. And, you know, there's
when you're playing as Ashley.
Yeah, so there's a few logic puzzles like that, and they're not extremely challenging, and you can brute force them if you really don't want to think about how to do it through trial and error. But they are, I thought, fun little brain teasers, and I don't remember like those types of puzzles in the more recent games. It seems to be all of the jigsaw puzzle type things. Even in RE2 Remake and RE3 Remake, it's just find the pieces to this thing to open the door. There's no more, here's this Rubik's Cube, solve it to unlock something.
Oh. Yeah, the one we had to think about was there was a platinum sword and a gold sword, and we had to swap them. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, so they're not hard. Like, this is a game that they know kids are going to play, so they can't make them too difficult. But I thought it was a nice change of pace to have 2 different kinds of puzzles in this game. What did you think, Jay?
Puzzles are good. They're serviceable. I was never stuck on one for very long. So they weren't very hard in my opinion. But I liked that the pacing of it, where it would break up combat, and then you're like, I get a puzzle now. You know, I can chill for a second. So I liked every time I saw, like, oh, this is clearly a puzzle area, I was able to release some of the stress that I had, you know, playing through this game.
All right, back from the break. So I'm going to go to another question. All right, I want to talk about the cutscenes in this game and the QuickTime events. They're kind of intertwined. So one thing, like before we get into thoughts on the cutscenes that I wanted to highlight was that for Resident Evil 4, Capcom introduced full motion capture for their cutscenes. So they put in the credits, there's all these people who were involved in doing the mocap.
They were the first to invent mocap?
No, but I think I wouldn't say they were the first, but this was one of the early games that had fully motion captured animated cutscenes, and then they had some facial animations as well. And I think the cutscenes in this game look really great if you compare them to other games at the time. There's one in particular that I wanted to share that I think kind of highlights.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of The Last of Us cutscenes coming from Resident Evil 4.
You don't just have to be salty just to be salty, Cradle.
The Last of Us 2 or Last of Us?
Definitely The Last of Us.
All right, so this is the
but not The Last of Us
fight.
2. That definitely took from Resident Evil 5.
It's a good segue into QuickTime events in the cutscenes. And the big twist.
So he says I'm an American, but he wears a red beret and says comrade, right?
I don't know. But I think this knife fight makes good use of the motion capture that they did. And I know, like, the textures aren't in line with what we have in modern games, but I think this holds up well, even with modern day cutscenes. Like, playing it in the HD remaster where it's full textures, like 1080p textures, HD, it looks really good. Like, look at that roll that Leon does.
I've definitely seen some modern cutscenes that look worse than this.
I agree. And my issue isn't with the cutscenes. They're with the zombie movement in-game.
To Jay's point, though, or maybe I'll let you just give us your thoughts on the cutscene QuickTime events, Jay.
Oh, on the QuickTime events?
Yeah, like you've seen a bunch pop up as we've been watching this cutscene together. And there's your button mashing. This fucked me
I
up
hate QuickTime
when it
events
switched.
and button mashing. Because, like, you lose, you have to start the cutscene all over. And this is kind of what John and Gradle were saying earlier, where you have to watch a cutscene over and over and over again. It's like this with QuickTime events. Like I mentioned, I died 54 times, and probably 30 of those were just me fucking up a QuickTime event and dying. And it's like, in more modern games, you mess up a QuickTime event, and it's funny. Like, your guy trips or something, but you don't have to restart the whole from your checkpoint, you know? So, I really thought that the overuse of QuickTime events and button mashing held this game back. I would rather, especially in a tense horror game like this, for horror games in specific, I like get through the combat encounters like barely, and then I go, oh, a cutscene, I get to relax, I pour myself another drink, I'm like chilling, watching a short, cutscene, and then it just fucks me with QuickTime events. I get really frustrated with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Luckily, I didn't fail too many QuickTime events in my playthrough, but when I did, like, it was really, like, that's it. Instant death. Some of those, those death scenes are really cool. Like, there's one pretty early in the game when you find Ashley. You open the door and there's a QuickTime event, and she throws a knife at you. And if you fail it, it just hits you in the forehead and game over. So, I mean, there's some creative death animations, and it made me think of the Dead Space games and some of those brutal deaths that they have in those games. Because there's a lot here with Resident Evil. There's another one where one of the enemies that pours acid on you, if you get killed by that enemy, it does an animation where you see Leon and his face is melted and his bare skull is exposed, and it's really brutal. And I think it just does a good job with the tone of a horror game. Like, the odds are stacked against you, and this stuff, is dangerous. But I mean, there are a lot of QuickTime events in the cutscenes, and it would be frustrating.
You're running away from a giant stone statue, and you mess up the bolt trigger thing, and you fall into a pit and die. And you gotta do the whole sequence over again.
Yeah.
Oh, and watch the cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
That knife fight,
because it's part of the cutscene,
with Krauser did fuck me up. You're mashing the button, and then it switches what button you're mashing. Like, if you are watching this video and you got that first time, like, let me know in the comments. I'll salute you.
Oh, I got it first time.
Let us know in the comments. We'll salute you.
I salute you, Jay.
Yeah.
That fucked me.
It's because I'm so slow with button mashing. It's really a problem. But I was able to switch it.
So, I have a question. Is this actually a horror game?
No, it's like light horror, I'd say. It's not...
It's more a gore horror than scary
It's not
horror.
what you'd think of today as like a horror. It's more of like an action-adventure game with some horror elements, I would say.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's not scary at all.
Yeah, I mean...
I was pretty scared sometimes, like... Not like scared, like screaming scared, but when I heard the voices of enemies, I'd be like, fuck, shit. And then there was a couple times where I'd turn around, they'd be in my face, or there'd be a bunch swarming me. Or at the end, the regenerators, where you had to use the thermal scope to shoot off the leeches on them. Those were the scariest enemy in the game for me, because they make this stupid sniffling noise and they slowly walk at you and you're like frantically trying to pinpoint these leeches and thermal on them, and like there was one point where I closed a lever where metal bars came up and I was like, okay, I got time, he's stuck on the other side of the bars, so I'm taking my time shooting these leeches, and then he opens the door and he starts coming at me and like I pooped myself.
That happened to me too.
So there's a couple definitely times that I was pretty scared.
The ones with 5 leeches were so hard for me to kill because there was always one on the back, and I had such a hard time getting behind him.
Yeah, when it got to the one on the back, I'd switch to my TMP and just spray until I got lucky and hit it.
Another fun fact, when you get the thermal scope, so I was using, the only guns I had were the Red 9, the TMP, and the shotgun. I had to go run back to the merchant and dodge a couple of those guys because I didn't have a rifle because I wasn't using it. I had just been selling my rifle ammo. So I had to buy, thankfully I had enough money, I bought one, and then I just use it for dealing with the regenerators. One thing, John, that I thought made this game scary at time was the soundtrack, and I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on the soundtrack and the score. You'd go into a room and the music would just stop. There'd be nothing playing. You just hear your footsteps or whatever's in the environment, and it would be that way for, I don't know, a couple minutes sometimes, and I would just be on edge because I would know that something was about to jump out at me or there was going to be an enemy encounter, and I'd just kind of be like anxious for that to come. And then sometimes nothing happened. You just open a door and then music would resume. So I thought they do a good job of playing with that tension of like keeping you guessing when something is going to come, and I don't know, the music lends to that.
Yeah, I didn't really like the soundtrack in this game, especially the first area. It like almost gave me a headache. I get what they're going for to make it suspenseful, but it wasn't pleasant to listen to or what I want to do in my free time. So I didn't like the soundtrack in the first area. I think it got better in the second area, and then I think the soundtrack got bad again in the third area.
Yes, it was like bravado, like military. I don't know how else to describe it in the third area. I agree.
You guys' thoughts on the soundtrack in the first area?
I don't know. I'm not somebody who, if I were to notice soundtrack, that'd be a major plus. But
yeah, I'm never
I never notice.
Same. It never makes a difference to me whether there's no soundtrack or there is a soundtrack.
I would probably notice if there was no soundtrack.
It kicks up and gets intense in those couple of like horde parts of the game at the beginning when all.
But here's the thing: is like, yes, it's gonna get. If it's an intense part of the game, you could be a fucking idiot and put some intense music on. Is it good intense music? Is it bad intense music? I don't know.
I mean, I just thought it led well to the mood and played into creating that desperate feeling that I had when I didn't know that bell was going to ring. And it just kind of built up. and got more intense as more and more enemies kept coming. Yeah.
Like, I could see if you, like, in the first area in the village, like we were talking about, if you didn't know it was a timed event, and the longer you were alive, the more intense and louder the music got. I could see that being a section where you go, this was like really well done. But for me, and maybe that is how it was, but for me, it's very hard for me to notice when the music is good for where it is.
I'd like to come back to this, John, as you play more games and see if you start to notice the soundtrack more, because a lot of my favorite games have some of my favorite soundtracks. Like the Persona series is notorious for always having a killer soundtrack.
I will say, I've noticed the soundtrack in Persona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I will only notice the soundtrack in games where the soundtrack is amazing. But it can be great, and I won't notice it. Yeah, because soundtrack to me isn't that important.
Yeah, right. Another game I want to shout out is Citizen Sleeper. That soundtrack is one of my favorite all time. That game's mostly reading and like not playing, but the soundtrack kind of carries it because it perfectly sets your mood and your expectations. But games like Persona, games like Doom, the soundtrack's kind of front and center part of the game, you know.
Where you have the soundtrack as like a character.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
I think Souls
wouldn't
games
be the same without it, you know.
Well. There's a lot of...
What were you saying, Gradle?
I mean, yeah, I feel like I have a disparity between when I'm playing a game and listening to a game. Like, I know the soundtrack's happening. I just don't think I have that connection where I can say like, oh, the soundtrack's good because I'm so focused on the game. Well, maybe that's the ADHD in me or what, but
Kingdom Hearts has an amazing soundtrack, I would say.
Yeah, and I don't notice it half the time.
Really?
Sometimes that's a compliment.
I only know, but I was going to say that. No, the only time I notice a game soundtrack is when I can listen to it like without the game playing, because I'll listen to Shadow of the Colossus, Journey, Kingdom Hearts, like all those soundtracks are great, but only when I'm like studying, like in college, when I had that. All of the game soundtracks are playing and I'm able to listen to them, but when I'm actually playing the game, I just don't get it. And maybe that's just me, but you know, elevator music could be playing and I probably would be Portal.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not one that you're gonna go listening to while you're doing homework or working.
No.
Yeah.
So
I'm a lyrics guy, honestly. If there's no lyrics in soundtrack, I have a hard time noticing it exists. Because with me, when it comes to music, I like stories. Which is why I wanted to play Persona 4, because I was like ready to play a game that had an in-depth story, you know? It had been a while since I played one.
And Persona music has words in it too.
Resident Evil 4 is not that game.
Huh?
Resident Evil 4 is not that game.
No, absolutely not. And most games aren't, right? Because most of the time the music is trying to set an ambiance. It's not trying to tell the story. So like for me, even my favorite playlists that I create on Spotify, they're not like songs that have amazing instrumentals. They are songs that tell the stories that like I listen to it and like at the end of the song my eyes are tearing up, you know? So like during games, like I don't notice music because like for me music is like it's another medium of storytelling.
Music is reflection of self. We just explain it.
Truth. That's deep.
Hashtag D.
All right. Any other thoughts? Like I've saved what I consider the best for last.
That's it.
I want to talk about characters. Like, starting with Leon. Like, I want to know, like, I'll give my thoughts, but I want to know what you guys think about Leon as the main protagonist of Resident Evil 4. And then we'll talk about some of the other characters in this game. So from my perspective, I'm comparing him to Leon from Resident Evil 2 Remake. And like the thing that stands out is he's just so much more of a badass in Resident Evil 4. In RE2 Remake, Leon's a green cop. Like, it's his first day on the job. He comes to Raccoon City and this zombie outbreak has happened. And you really feel that every time he sees a zombie or a new zombie type, he has the voice line that will play where he says, "What the?" And that happens over and over again. And it just kind of highlights his inexperience, which is understandable given, you know, how outrageous and over the top all the stuff happening during the events of Raccoon City is. But now at the beginning of the game, in that opening cutscene, it highlights that 6 years have passed since the events of Resident Evil 2, and Leon has received special training and is now working as a special agent directly under the President of the United States. He's not surprised by any of the Ganados or any of the weird monsters that you fight. And during, I think it's the U3 boss fight, he even says, "Oh, this will just be one less monster in the world pretty soon." So he's traded his surprise, "What the?" for these badass quips and one-liners that, you know, you've heard some of us say. There's one where Sadler says, "Thanks for disposing of my useless henchmen," and Leon just goes, "You're useless, Sadler." So admittedly, like, we talked about the dialogue. These are often silly and cheesy, but I still really enjoy the character growth between the events of RE2 and RE4 that Leon went through. You know, he does the kick that I've talked about. He does flips and stuff to avoid stuff. He's just way more capable in RE4. And at the end of the game, when he rides off with Ashley and she's like, "Let's hook up," he's just like, "I could have sex with you if I wanted to, but I just don't want to."
I think the quote there is, she's like, "Do you want to come over and do some overtime?" And he's like, "Thanks, but I'll pass."
Yeah.
Hey, it wouldn't be a Japanese game without that, right?
I guess so.
Am I insulting a lot of the entire country?
No, that's pretty much on
It's
par
like it's
with the
typical,
genre.
though, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's in the
there's
thread of Yakuza.
There's another quote I like of Leon's where he's like talking to the final guy,
Sadler.
And he's like, "I forgot that I was a part in your crappy script," and I smirked at that because it was funny and it was meta.
It was Salazar.
No, Sadler's the last big bad.
Yeah, they were talking about the scripts in the
castle.
And Salazar.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Up against Salazar.
Yeah, because he's like, "No, it's my script. You're just a side character."
Yeah. So I agree. I'll echo everything you said. That Leon's a badass in this game, and I really, really liked him at the end of the game. Even though I didn't have the past experience playing Resident Evil 2, I thought at the end of the game, like, he was a really cool dude doing flips and shit, flipping through lasers and saving the girl on a jet ski, you know, like, he's a good character.
John Gradle, any thoughts on Leon?
I agree.
All right.
Although, I will say, hold on, I forgot about one thing. You say that he's like badass, and in the older game, he's like, "What the?" Wasn't it in the very first scene of this game, the very first cutscene when he goes into the house? He's like tapping the guy's shoulder. Hey, dude, can you tell me where this girl is? And then the guy turns around with an axe, and he's like, "What the?" Like, isn't that how he starts in this game as well?
I don't know, maybe just a callback, but he says it constantly in the remake. Like, it's just, I just remember him always seeing a zombie and going, "What the?" He's just always surprised.
I don't know, but I don't think he actually says those words. But, like, it's definitely a "what the" moment. As if, like, as somebody who's never played a Resident Evil game before, I see that cutscene and I go, "Oh, Leon didn't even know this outbreak's happening."
Yeah, but then he starts diving out windows and kicking people in the face and doing backflips and
That's true.
knife fighting.
He changes pretty quick, so I guess it's okay.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, you might be right. I just think he adapts to it way quicker, whereas he almost never really gets over his surprise in RE2, at least in RE2 Remake. All right, so the flip side, his counterpart, Lord Sadler, the main villain of this game. So my notes on Sadler, I thought overall he was kind of weak, but he was serviceable as the main villain. Like, his motivation was pretty basic. He wants to take down, and control the United States government and use their influence, right, to, I don't know, to enact a new world order based on his cult. I wish we had gotten a little more lore and background about him in the files that we find, but I don't remember seeing anything that talked about more about the cult and how he kind of rose to prominence, and if he was connected to Umbrella or any of the other corporations, how he knew about Las Plagas. So I wanted a little bit more from Sadler. Like, I just wanted to know. I was curious about him. I wasn't really satisfied with what I did learn about him.
Yeah, I thought he was a good villain, but I think the first two villains were stronger in character. And yeah, in the stuff you pick up where you can read, there was a little bit about the cult, and then them in the castle digging for Las Plagas, and I don't think it ever connected it with Umbrella, but Umbrella was, interested. They sent Krauser and stuff. But I do have a favorite quote from Sadler. You may be able to prolong your life, but it's not like you can escape your inevitable death, can you? Which is just so cheesy and funny and true. So, I liked the little FaceTime calls you would have with him towards the end of the game. I always was smiling in their bad dialogue, cheesy.
I think,
however you want to call it, I enjoyed it.
The only thing I remember about what's his name? What's the name we're talking
Sadler?
about? Sadler, yeah. Sadler is that he has a huge dick. And that's what he used to kill Lewis, because it just like spears him in the chest and then retracts right back to his crotch.
Yeah.
I think I texted Paul.
Text me that.
I'm like,
I
damn.
texted Paul that.
That guy's
I was like,
packing.
yeah, I'm right after the part where Sadler impaled Lewis on his dick. So it comes out of like the bottom of his robe. It's like,
yeah, it does, like I had to rewind the scene. I'm like, did that just happen? It came like right back up his crotch. I'm like, Jesus. That's how I would do it if I were to murder someone as sexy as Lewis. I'd just dick him right through the chest.
John, any thoughts on Sadler?
I agree.
Okay. All right, we mentioned Lewis. Let's talk a little about Lewis. One thing I liked with him is you found out more and more about his background as you played through the game. because when you first meet him, doesn't he say he's a cop from Madrid who's investigating the cult?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what he says. And as you find those files and you read, there's Lewis's memo, and I want to say I found 4 or 5 of them, and each one reveals more and more about his role in the events of Resident Evil 4. So I know.
Yeah, he was a researcher. He figured out what they were doing, but he was equally intrigued by it as like repulsed by it. So he should have stopped it, but he didn't. So he's equally responsible for the events that occur involving Las Plagas, and so it was kind of cool to get that backstory. And something you would totally miss if you didn't read those notes, which I kind of like. The more if you want it, or you could just skip it and not know.
No, he says at the end too that he was a researcher.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he comes clean once he gets dick through the chest. As we go back, he's like, "Yeah, I'm a researcher, and here's the next step you got to go to."
Yeah, so I liked how you got to know a little bit more about his motivations and why he was helping you by finding those notes. And I always read that stuff when I find it. So, but he had some funny scenes with him early. He confirmed that Leon is in fact better with the ladies, and then that the president's daughter is equipped with ballistics line that we heard earlier in that cutscene that I played.
Yeah, only 40 times.
All right, so let's talk about my personal favorite side character, Ada Wong. I think her last name is Wong. I'm gonna feel really bad if it's not.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about her. She was only in a couple cutscenes, and she was cool, but I don't really know a lot about her. I don't know if she was in past games, if there's a history.
She must have been.
Yeah, she's in 2.
So
there is a DLC called Separate Ways where you play as Ada, because while Leon is going through the game, she's also there, so you can play as her to see what she was doing, and you interact with Leon in those cutscenes. So I've heard that's pretty essential to the Resident Evil 4 experience, so I definitely plan to play that at some point. But I just really like how cool Ada is. Like, she reminds me of like a Bond character. She's like a female version of a Bond character. I like how she saves Leon's ass a couple of times, sends him the paper airplane with the lipstick on it to tell him where to go next. And I don't know, she just always seems to be one step ahead of him. And I really am intrigued by their relationship. And I don't know, I can't remember if there's any physical contact in 4, but in Resident Evil 2, they share a kiss, and she saves him in that game as well. And he has saved her before, but it's just an interesting dynamic to have Leon, who's like this upstanding, like good guy working for the president, but his girlfriend is working for a private company, kind of their interests kind of conflict. So I really like her both in Resident Evil 2 and in this game, and definitely want to play the Separate Ways DLC to learn more about what she was up to during the events of this game. The bitch in the red dress, as Krauser calls her. All right.
That's all I would have called her.
The next couple people on the list are all characters in the game, but they're also boss fights. So up first, the village chief. So he's the boss of the village, the first area. He's really scary. You encounter him pretty early in the game, and Leon goes to do a cool karate kick on him, but he just puts his hand out and like completely stops Leon's momentum and throws him back, and Leon gets knocked out. And then they capture him and they inject him with Las Plagas, and then they set him free to let the eggs hatch and that stuff. Later, to get out of the village. You've got to get his glass eye, so you have to fight him. And you fight him in this like burning shed, and he morphs into this really grotesque monster, and he has a ton of health. Did you have the rocket launcher, Jay? I'm curious for that fight.
No, I didn't. I had to actually fight this one.
Yeah, and it was a pretty tough fight. Like, this might have been the hardest fight in the game for me, just because I didn't have my weapons upgraded fully yet. And I wasn't as rich on grenades and healing as I was once I got to the castle.
Yeah, this was the toughest fight in the game for us as well, because it was our last boss fight. So that was the same.
Yeah, I probably died
And,
like five times.
Yep, same. We found out that we could just run in circles, and then we threw all our grenades.
I really liked the scene, like fighting him in the burning barn was really cool. And after, it was also pretty cool after like his first phase, or maybe it was his second phase, but the part where his legs fall off and now he's just a torso and arms and he's just swinging around. And he's really mobile, and I wasted a bunch of ammo because I miss him with my shotguns because he's moving so fast. And I don't know. I beat this one. I had low health. It was intense. I got a good satisfaction when I finally made him explode and got out of there.
Once I got to the second phase, I was like, yeah, I don't want to deal with the second phase. So I used all the ammo in the first phase. And then I switched to grenades, incendiary grenades, and just took him out with 3 of those. Or two or three of those. So that was it. Like, as soon as he, like, before he could jump up, just like throw it on there.
Yeah, I was pretty low on ammo, so I was like running, screaming, looking for ammo around the warehouse. Like, I died a lot, and mainly I saved my shotgun for the second phase, so when he jumped in my face, I'd shotgun him, then run away. That's how I ended up beating him, but I was also pretty low in health too.
Yeah, so I overall I thought this was a good fight. Let's talk about Salazar now, the castle inn of the second area. Sorry,
short guy like Napoleon kind of.
Yes.
Vibe I thought they were going for.
I love this guy's design. This 20-year-old dwarf who's got poxmarks all over his face, and he's so over the top. I love his voice actor. Another one of my favorite moments in this game is the cutscene where he's standing by the elevator and Leon throws his knife and impales his hand. It's so cool. And he's like so devastated and he like cries. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so cheesy and silly. It's, I don't know, just that balance of all this cheesy, silly dialogue and characters in this game where there's zombies and all these grotesque, over the top monsters. Just the clash just really worked for me.
That's a strong point of the game is, it's awful and horrible to be in because it's grotesque and everything's trying to kill you, but then all the characters are over the top and funny and cheesy where like you're having a good time but you're not at the same time.
Yeah, and what I liked about Salazar is your interaction with him in the castle was so frequent. Like, he's really there around every corner. And the back and forth that we've highlighted between him and Leon was really good as well. Probably the strongest villain of the game for me.
Same.
All right, welcome back. Getting close to the end of this one. Let's talk about the last character I wanted to touch on, Krauser. So he's the one who kidnapped Ashley and brought him to Sadler, and we learn that it's because he's trying to gain Sadler's trust because he works for Umbrella. And he's almost just as extreme as the cultist. He thinks that Umbrella should guide the world, and he's fully crazy, really buff, good with a knife. What do you guys think of Krauser in his boss fight?
It was a tough boss fight. I think if you don't realize that he's weak to knives, then it's very hard and you'll waste a ton of ammo. But I died a lot here because the boss fight also introduces my favorite thing, quick time events. So when he charges you, you have to do the quick time event or you'll get hurt real bad. So what I ended up doing is shotgunning his legs. Oh, and also the rocket launcher doesn't work on him either.
Oh.
So I would shotgun his legs, and then when he got close to me, like aim down and knife him. And that was the way I finally beat him. But he goes down really quick if you just spam knife him and catch him in a corner.
Yeah, I did not know that. I wasted a lot of ammo fighting him, and I took up almost the entire timer my first time, and I did not make it through the door in time, so I died, and I had to fight him again.
Wow. Yeah, I beat him, and I had like 2 minutes still, so I was like looking around, like any ammo around here. I had all the time in the world.
Any additional thoughts, guys?
I couldn't tell if he was Russian or American, but then he said he was American, so I just believed him, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I agree. The red beret. Blonde, blue-eyed babe.
Yep. And then the boss fight, I like that they played on, there's 3 parts to this medallion. It's the Northeast, and I got the 3rd. Or Leon expresses that. And then, yeah, the only thing I saw was knifing was the best way to deal with stuff. Not that I would have seen.
If you die, I think Krauser, or someone says, I don't know if it's Krauser or Leon, he says, should have stuck with the knife. Like giving you a hint, but I just was too dense to pick up on it. Alright, so that's there's one more discussion question that I think we'll save for the very end. But let's do any lingering thoughts that you guys wanted to talk about, and then let's score this one.
Did we go through the questions from the listeners?
We covered the one that was from Jacob Seckman where he wanted us to compare. I didn't shout out his name, I apologize. But thank you, Jacob Seckman, for writing in the question asking us to compare this game to other games from the 2005 era. The other question, I think we should cover this after we score, is from it's from my brother Jacob Stelmer. He wrote in, he wants to know what we would like to see in the upcoming Resident Evil 4 remake. C/not C.
Okay. So are we scoring now?
Yeah, let's give a little overall thoughts on the game and then do a score. Why don't you start, John?
Oh, me. Cool. All right. So, I was born in 1995. In my opinion, yeah, what day? So I'll just give a little backstory there.
What's your social security
number?
Bit
of. Okay. I don't remember. If you don't have nostalgia for this era, and you don't have a love for the Resident Evil franchise, and you don't have critical pressure to love this game, then this game doesn't hold up. So in 2022, this game isn't worth playing, in my opinion. I do think that the boss battles are interesting, and I think if this game, in the simpler, not storytelling or map configuration, but in the simpler items, the simpler areas of a video game, controls, graphics, whatever, if they measured up to today's standards, then I do think this game would have a lot of potential. Which is why I do think the remake might be, a game that could be be a lot of fun. But this game, the 2005 version of Resident Evil 4, I don't think is worth playing right now. Especially seeing how there's a remake coming out in like a month. So I give it a 2 out of 10.
Do you want to go next, Jay?
Sure. So I started out hating this game. Then I slowly came around and started loving this game. And there were a lot of issues with it that I still can see. One is the controls. As we already beat to death, you'd go to aim and you'd be facing the wrong direction. I could never get a feel to how to get that to work right. So I think the controls hold it back a little bit for me. 2 is escort missions are universally not fun. So the game got markedly more fun whenever Ashley was taken away from you. But I do think it was necessary for the game, so it's tough there, but I didn't like having to worry about Ashley. I didn't like leaving her back there and then going up and fighting the people, and then people come up from behind and grab her. Like, I lost a couple times just because of that. So, I think there's a way to do it better. I don't think it was implemented flawlessly here. And then my third criticism to the game is the overuse of QuickTime events and button mashing. It's in there way more than it needs to be. If it was only in there maybe 50% or 80% less, I think it'd be a better game as a whole. All that criticism being said, this is, a really great game. I really enjoyed it by the end of it. I loved the cheesy dialogue. I thought the story was interesting, and it kept me going all the way through. I liked the collectibles. I liked all the cheesy stuff they put in there, like Leon just sitting on the throne just to chill for a second and do a cool pose. Like, that's the kind of cheesy stuff that makes me smirk and say, I didn't expect that here, and when a game can do something unexpected for me, it gets bonus points. And I can see why everybody loves it, and I betcha if I would have played this in 2005 as a 11-year-old, I would have great nostalgia for this game and defend it wildly, but playing it now, as John said, it's a little rough around the edges, so I'm very looking forward to the remake. I hope they take out all the QuickTime events, or the majority of them, and clean up some of the Ashley parts. So, all that being said, I will rate this game 8.5 out of 10. If they remove those parts I didn't like, it could be a 10 out of 10. It all comes together so cohesively between the spooky and the cheesy. Love it.
All right, Alec, you want to go next?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, as I said at this point, I was turned off within the first 30 minutes to the controls. And then I never really got into the story or the atmosphere. Like, we were filled in on the backstory in the beginning, and I just really didn't care. So I guess starting in the 4th game of a franchise, and this might have been leaked over into Gears 5 episode and everything, just doesn't really make me feel a lot of care for the environment and the story and everything. So I didn't really have a connection to this game at all. And if I'm being honest, this was probably one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had. Just for the 5 hours I played. So I don't think that I'm able to give a review of this game. I watched the speedrun and the cutscenes afterwards, and with my experience being a blinder of that, I didn't really, connect with any of what I would have gotten into, and maybe I would have given it a fair shake if I had played the game properly and put in the due diligence and somehow learned the controls, or not learned the controls, but gotten used to the controls, and then it would have been more enjoyable for me. But all in all, I don't think I can give a proper review of this game. If you want me to give a number, I will.
No, I don't think you have to. I think that's fair.
All right. Then 2.5 out of 10 is the number for the 1 quarter of the game that I was able to get through.
Okay, and last but not least, I sandwiched us between hate, love, hate, love. I love this game. You guys Jay touched on a lot of things that I like about the game. What I would say is that the village part of the game is a 10 out of 10. The castle part of the game is a 10 out of 10. And the island part of the game is, 7 or 8 out of 10. And then, I have a couple of minor gripes that I think you also had, Jay. So overall, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I hope in the remake that they rework the island part of the game, because it's not very fun to fight guys with guns in a zombie horror game. And I thought the level design for that part of the game was lacking. It was very linear and just walking down, winding corridors. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts and playing through that game with me. I'm sorry, John and Gretel, you guys didn't have a great time with it, but I get it. I understand. I knew it was going to be polarizing, but I'm glad that you came on here to give your thoughts on it. So that said, thanks a lot if you're part of the audience and you played through it with us as well. John, it's your pick next. Tell us what we're going to be playing.
Oh yeah. So I put a little bit of thought in this a couple days. And I think we played a co-op game in Gears 5. But I want to play a truly multiplayer game. But also, I just kind of want to chill out and play a really, really cozy game. So I choose that the 4 of us get together a few times the next couple weeks. We'll figure it out. But I'm picking Played Up. The restaurant sim. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's like Overcooked, but
I know that one.
Yeah,
I was gonna pick Overcooked, and then I Googled it, and it looks like Played Up was a kind of fill in the issues that Overcooked had. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
Well, I like to think I'm pretty tuned into the gaming news scene, and you picked a game I never heard of before, so
yep.
I'm surprised and looking forward to playing another co-op game with you guys.
Well, here's the thing. After
3 years, dividing us, Paul, it'll take John to reunite us together as the giants of Backlog.
In 3 years, when this podcast is 5 years old, I'm gonna know the most about the gaming, the new game scene, what's coming out, because I'm so damn competitive, and the only reason I'm gonna lose this year in Fantasy Critic is because I had terrible counter picks. Only reason. Go look at it.
It all stems back to Fantasy Critic.
But who's going to win this year? Yes. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Probably someone dumb.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
Probably a real idiot.
All right, John. Well, I'm looking forward to playing that with you. So that's it for this episode. We've been the Giants of Backlog. You can find us on social media at Giants of Backlog. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want to submit questions on Played Up or any of the games we play, we'll talk about them on the episode. Email us at giantsbacklog@gmail.com. That's it for us. I'm Paul.
I'm Alec.
I'm Jay. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.